Now, what was the purpose for those pumps? Because it was certainly not something that was urgent, because it was a conversation from around 3 a.m. for the pumps to arrive at 7 a.m. What was the purpose for those pumps?
Okay. At that time, we were exploring other options, which could have been one of pumping down the line for dry rescue. And your question about why it wasn't urgent, I don't understand the question.
No,
why.
I said that it obviously was not urgent because it was for 7 a.m. the next morning.
I don't understand why.
If it was urgent, you would have asked for the pumps to come earlier.
Okay, so
because you were making the call from around 3 a.m.
Yes, but logistically, 7 o'clock would have been a very optimistic time for that pump to arrive.
Okay.
These pumps are not like a water house pump that you could put in the back of the car and drive.
But did you make attempts to get the pump urgently?
Yes, and that's why at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was following up with Ravi Prasad.
So you're saying that the pumps were for the rescue operation?
Correct.
Okay. Look at the next, at paragraph 112. However, the Eastern Divers Rescue Team, who had arrived earlier and were asked to develop a rescue plan, advised that realistically this was no longer a rescue and they would not attempt a confined space entry for the recovery of the deceased persons. So Eastern was telling you that was no longer a rescue as far as they were concerned. It's recovery of the deceased persons.
That was the opinion of the Eastern Divers Rescue Team.
Were the pumps ordered the day before for recovery operation or rescue operation?
A rescue operation.
Rescue. Then at paragraph 113, despite the IMT efforts, the TTCG Hull Support Services Limit, Mitchell Divers and OTSL could not be persuaded to enter the pipeline to conduct any rescue efforts. All 4 parties explained that there would be significant risks to their own divers and attempted to rescue the divers by entering the pipeline. However, IMT continued to make efforts to get a diver to attempt a rescue for the missing divers to collect and share information to make preparatory steps to facilitate requests by LMCS. First question is that you would agree with me that these companies would be reluctant to have gone into the pipeline to rescue the divers if they believed that it was no longer a rescue but a recovery of dead bodies.
Say that again? They were
So
willing
Chairman,
to enter the pipeline.
in fairness to the witness, I don't know if the witness could answer what the other companies would be thinking.
My inclination is to think that for them to calculate whether or not they were prepared to risk their people, they would want to know whether there was any realistic prospect of the people in the pipe being dead or alive. Nobody wants to risk divers if they're already dead. I think that's the purpose of the question. Well, now you're trying to flatter me, and that's not. I think you need to put your mic on.
Right. No, the way Mr. Marchard framed it, it was asking the witness to explain the thinking of the diving companies, but the way you're framing it, it's based on the facts that it's a deduction to be drawn.
All right. Perhaps you'll rephrase your question, Mr. Maharaj. I think we understand where you're going. I think Mr. Way probably does now, but I'll rephrase the question.
Mr. Way, would you agree with me that divers to go into that pipeline, these companies to go into that pipeline, they would obviously want to consider whether it is realistic to go into the pipeline and rescue a living person or a dead person?
That would play into their consideration, but as I said, I would know the exact considerations at this time.
Okay.
Well, I mean, that's not entirely fair, is it? Because you've just had read to you at paragraph 112. If you can scroll back the other way. Thank you. You've just had that paragraph read to you. Eastern Divers Rescue Team, who presumably you called as experts to advise you. Am I right?
Someone else called them, but...
Well, I don't mean you personally. Forgive me,
Right.
Mr. Way. You, the IMT.
Yes, the IMT, yes.
Yes. Called the Eastern Divers Rescue Team
Right.
for their expertise.
Yes.
And presumably you place some faith in their expertise.
Yes.
And they were saying to you that they took the view at this stage, by the look of what that paragraph says, they were saying to you they believed there was no real prospect of these men still being alive.
Yes, that was
What
it.
time are we talking about?
This would have been somewhere around maybe 7 o'clock, early hours in the morning.
7 o'clock or so in the morning?
Yes.
Right. So what's the time gap between Mr. Boudram coming out of the pipe and 7 o'clock in the morning?
That would be about 11. That would be in the
13 or 14 hours. We're talking about something like that.
yeah.
Something in that order, isn't it?
Yes.
Did you regard it as being likely that these men were still going to be alive 13 or 14 hours after Mr. Boudram, having been in there for some hours himself, had come out?
Repeat that question.
Yes. Did you regard it, you, the IMT, I don't mean you
Yes.
personally, you, the IMT, did you regard it as being likely or unlikely that these men had already died?
Let me answer this question. The IMT considered still rescue options.
Yes. Well,
It did not consider...
I understand that's a question you want to answer, but I'd like you to answer my question. And my question is whether or not you, in the IMT, had considered, given that you'd just been given the advice by people you placed faith in, Eastern
Right.
Divers Rescue Team, that these men were already dead.
No. We had considered that the guys may still be alive.
They might still be alive. All right. So notwithstanding what you'd been told by Eastern Divers Team, who said they were not going to prepare to risk their divers, the basis being that they thought the other divers were already dead,
Yes.
you were still looking at options.
Correct.
Thank you very much. The paragraph that Mr. Maharaj was asking you about, paragraph 113, you say this: despite the IMT's efforts, the Coast Guard, the Hull Support Services Limited, and Mitchell Divers, and OTSL. What's OTSL?
Offshore Technology Services Limited.
Did they have divers?
Yes.
And had you consulted with them?
The IMT consulted with them.
Right. What about Mitchell Divers?
The
They
IMT
obviously had divers.
I understand the IMT would have consulted with them.
Right. Hull Support Services Limited, did they have divers?
Yes.
And the Coast Guard, did they have divers?
Yes.
Right. So all of those other organizations, other than the Eastern Divers, did they think that the men were still alive, or might be?
What I don't know. What I know that they were considering that the risk of diving into the line was high.
Well, I dare say it would be. But you see, the way you phrase that, I'm kind of anxious to understand you, because your paragraph says none of those people could be persuaded.
Correct?
So that I understand it, are you saying that the IMT were trying to persuade any one of these organizations, please go in the pipe, please rescue these men? What am I to take? Am I
Yes.
to understand that's the position?
Okay, so picture the scenario. At
I'm
that
trying.
stage, a dive rescue was still being considered.
Right.
So there are companies who responded that were readily available.
Yep.
So you're exploring all options. They are saying it was unsafe and significant risk to put their divers to go in that pipeline without knowing all the conditions that we explained before. And we were trying to convince them in whatever way we could have done, and also continued looking for the options
Right.
of divers.
Well, then the last option might have been the LMCS.
That is true.
Because nowhere here do you say, do you, that you asked LMCS if they had divers that were prepared to go in.
If you refer later on into the statement, LMCS on Sunday, came forward with a diver that said we're willing to enter the pipeline.
All right, let me see if I understand you. You're saying that LMCS did not offer divers to dive into the pipeline until Sunday. Is that what you're saying?
Did not come forth with any rescue plan.
No.
Or full rescue
No, my
system.
question, please. Forget the rescue plan. That comes after. You're entitled, of course, to say we're not prepared to let your divers go in without a rescue plan. I want to know, first of all, please, whether LMCS were offering divers to dive into the pipe.
Yes.
Right. And were they doing that at the same time as you say in these two paragraphs here that all of the other companies that you were considering using could not be persuaded to go into the pipeline?
At that time, I don't know, because the divers at that stage would be offshore and I would have been onshore. But I would expect that there would still be divers wanting to go into the pipeline.
Right. You agree that you knew that LMCS's divers, or some of them, were prepared to go into the pipeline at this time. Do you agree with that?
Wanted to.
Yes.
Not
Now, I
prepared.
understand that you may have good reasons why you didn't want to let them,
Right.
and that may be
okay.
perfectly good.
Taking the word prepared means
Yes.
that had a rescue plan, everything prepared to enter the
No,
line.
well, that's not what I mean.
Okay.
I'm a diver. I work for LMCS. These are my buddies in that pipeline, or my relatives. I'm prepared to go in there. There a willingness to do so.
Yeah,
Do you follow?
willingness.
Did you know that there were a number of divers who expressed a willingness to go into the pipeline?
Okay, I was not in direct communication, right? But I only know of LMCS suggesting that one diver was willing to go into the line.
Well, I'd hope you wouldn't be putting any more than one at a time, anyway. Can I just, I'm sorry if this is difficult, Mr. Way. I just want to understand whether you knew at the same time as you're saying this was taking place, on our paragraphs 112 and 113, were there any divers from LMCS saying, I am willing to go in the pipeline? It's a yes or no, isn't it? Did you know about that?
I would not know about that. No,
You
I
did not know. So are you saying then the IMT did not know?
No, specific me.
Well, you were part of the IMT. Surely
The
you would have
IMT
known
structure, there's the IMT leader who has more information than me,
that. All right.
right?
And who was the IMT leader? Mr. Piper, was it?
Colin Piper.
Right.
Right?
So I should
No.
ask him.
Yes, but I do know that LMCS came forward with one diver who I met on the Sunday who was willing to go into the pipeline.
But you didn't know that until Sunday. Is that what I'm to understand?
That's the only time I was confirmed to me that there was a diver willing to go.
That was when it was confirmed.
I heard comments and statements that divers wanted to enter the water.
Divers?
Right, by LMCS on the Friday. On the Saturday, I think there was not much talk of any diver going into the water. And then in the afternoon, a diver would have been available from LMCS, but he was not able to come until Sunday. That's the information I have.
Right.
So I hope
So
that
there were
clarifies.
divers on the Friday who were prepared to enter the water. You heard nothing much on the Saturday. And then on the Sunday, you had it confirmed to you that there was a diver who was prepared to come on the Sunday.
Correct.
And whether that was on Saturday you heard it or the Sunday, it doesn't really matter. He was not available until the Sunday.
Yes.
That's really what you heard, is it? Who told you that?
I can't specifically recall.
Was it someone from the IMT?
Someone from the IMT.
Right. Would it have been Mr. Piper, do you think?
No, I don't think it was Mr. Piper.
No. All right. Couldn't hazard a guess?
Maybe Catherine Balkison.
Maybe Mr. Balkison.
Yeah.
Miss, it's Miss, isn't it?
Miss.
It's a Miss. Yeah, thank you.
But on this Sunday, they came with the diver, and that I know.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Mr. Maharaj.
Mr. Way, I'm suggesting to you that you and the IMT knew of the request of LMCS for divers to go into the pipeline, and I refer you to paragraph 114 of your witness statement. I'll read it for you. You want to look at it?
Yeah. However,
Okay.
the IMT continued to make efforts to get a diver to attempt to rescue the missing divers, to collect and share information, to make preparatory steps, and to facilitate requests by LMCS.
So you knew of LMCS requests to get divers to enter the pipeline, and the IMT was trying to facilitate those requests.
I don't know if it's being read in the right way, right? However, the IMT continued to make efforts to get divers to attempt to rescue missing divers, to collect and share information, and to make preparatory steps, and to facilitate requests by LMCS. It's all separate. If I read it, I take it as separate actions. IMT continued to make efforts to, 1, get a diver to attempt to rescue the missing divers, 2, to collect and share information, 3, to make preparatory steps, and 4, to facilitate requests by LMCS.
But what do you think the request was for when you wrote this witness statement?
Specifically, there was a request by LMCS to remove the hyperbaric chamber, and there was a specific request by LMCS to cut the lifting bar that was obstructing the top of the new riser from entry of any personnel or equipment into the pipeline.
So you were getting information for all of that, but not in respect of LMCS wanting to send their divers into the pipeline.
The request to remove those items by LMCS might most likely, if I was to interpret, would have been in the process of allowing a diver to go into the pipeline. Because at the top of the hyperbaric chamber height, at that time on the Saturday, the hyperbaric chamber height was maybe 6 or 8 feet above the internal riser. Meaning that if you needed to enter the line for any diving operation, you first had to build a scaffolding and get yourself down 6 to 8 feet to the riser level. And the riser had an LMCS design for lifting that riser in place, had a bar, meaning that a physical obstruction through the center of the pipe. To send a diver down through there with equipment needed that bar to be removed. So I would agree with you that LMCS would have facilitated, would have requested to remove the hyperbaric chamber and cut out that bar so that they can send a personnel down, and I would say so.
You remember you told us here this morning in your evidence that LMCS was supposed to have an emergency response plan.
Yes.
And that emergency response plan would have been, in such case, to send divers into the pipeline.
No.
So an emergency response from LMCS would not have, you didn't envisage that any such emergency response plan would have had a plan to send in divers into the pipeline with this kind of situation.
It was LMCS' responsibility to envisage that. Let me step back. LMCS would have done an emergency response plan to cater for credible scenarios. And in their emergency response plan, divers into the pipeline was not considered. So there was no plan at that time with the emergency rescue plan for divers to enter the pipeline to extract divers.
But Mr. Way, what I'm asking you now, final question on this issue. What I'm asking you now, did you at any time, from the time you got the information at 6 p.m., that Budram had come out of that pipeline, you consulted with other dive companies to get someone to go into the pipeline? Did you consult, or did the IMT consult with LMCS to get any divers to go into that pipeline?
I would say yes.
Yes, who you consulted with?
I would say Colin Piper would have definitely tried to communicate with LMCS.
You have records of that in the IMT?
I'll leave that to Colin Piper.
Okay. I'm going to go to the other aspect of the. I see Commissioner Wilson wants to ask some questions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Way. I'm going to, just from off of your statements, I'm going to try and interrogate the IMT philosophy from what I heard from you, if you don't mind. The first question I'd like to ask is, with your experience and as a member of the IMT, how often do you guys drill for any type of response, whether it be small, large?
I can't recall.
So it's not the practice of Paria to drill for emergency responses?
No, Paria would have emergency drills, right? But I can't recall the last time I would have been specifically involved in a site-wide emergency response plan.
Or an IMT drill. All right. So one of the things that I found interesting is when an IMT convenes, do they set out the priorities of addressing an incident as an integrated team or separately? That means, do you guys come together and sit as a team in any specified area that is committed to addressing emergencies within your real estate?
Yes.
All right. So, because that would speak to, if you are convening collectively, that you might be most likely aware of all the priorities and all the information coming into the IMT. So I was just when I heard, your responsibility of other, probably chiefs, section chiefs or something like that. But I just wanted to know how the updates come in. And then thirdly, I heard that it went on for a sort of protracted period with the, meaning it started Friday, Saturday, listening to, right? At any point in time, did you guys leave the IMT or did you have a handover to other IMT members to manage the situation?
Okay, yes, if we left the IMT, we would hand over to someone.
Okay, so there's a back-to-back logistics section chief like yourself who?
Okay, so we did not, because of the nature of this incident, right, we were working, what do you say, extra long hours, right? And in my statement, I had called out Prakash Bihari to be my my backfill.
Okay. And as I said, I'm trying to interrogate the IMT practices. Is it a Paria practice to have an on-site commander, meaning there's a designated person on behalf of Paria at the site to relay information back into the IMT?
Yes.
And, okay. So that would address some of your earlier comments that you wasn't aware of what was coming in from the site. How was that, if you had a on-site commander?
Right. The on-site commander would have relayed directly to Colin Piper, the incident commander.
Right.
Right. I would have had other people outside there too, right? And they might have called and relayed certain things to me. But with the incident command structure, the instructions I would take would come from the IMT leader.
So,
and if there's information I thought I would feed back to him that from,
you would agree that the on-site commander is feeding information back into the IMT, which has to be dispersed amongst the IMT members.
Yes.
So, because you all are not making decisions in silos.
Yes.
Right.
But the decisions, most of the decisions basically and direction comes from the IMT leader.
Understood. All right. I just have one last question. When it comes to the Coast Guard and some of the other members that you had there, under your IMT philosophy practice, do you have a unified command? Meaning, is there someone that manages all the conversations, all the information you're getting from different bodies, Coast Guard, other contractors and stuff, to make a decision? Or is it, how are those conversations managed?
Okay, so most of the conversations would have gone through the incident commander, and also to the conversation or information coming in would be scribed.
Yeah, through the ICS forms and stuff, yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your feedback.
Much obliged. Yes. At paragraph 75 of your witness statement, you stated that LMCS method statements,
70.
JHA risk assessment, and dive plan documents submitted with the ITB proposal were reviewed and accepted by the Technical and Maintenance Department. Is that correct?
LMCS method statement Jesus plan submitted with the ITB proposal were reviewed and accepted by the technical and as part of the evaluation of the tender. Yes.
So would it be correct to say then that Paria accepted these documents?
The documents provided in the ITB proposal, yes.
All the documents you mentioned here, Paria accepted them
Yes.
and agreed to them.
Yes.
In order for the contract to have been awarded to LMCS, Paria had to agree to these documents. Without Paria's agreement, there could not have been a contract.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, in the scope of works which was developed by Paria, did it provide, as far as you can recall, for the line content to be cleared of Sealine 36?
There would be some clearing of the fuel oil in the line, yes.
Right.
The oil in the line.
And the system of the monitoring of the works that Paria had was a control of work system. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. And that meant that Paria would monitor compliance with the method statements and with the risk assessments.
Monitor, which is not dedicated monitoring.
But, and as far as you're concerned, Paria had a competence to monitor.
Yes.
Yes. And Paria did monitor.
Yes.
Yes. Now, I want to, you are familiar with the method statements, the risk assessment statements, and the emergency response plan. I don't want to go into what it is, but you're familiar with it?
That was provided with the ITB.
Yes.
I'm familiar with it to a certain extent. If I need to ask if I need to see it, I'll ask.
How, I want to show you, can I show, I want to show the witness CB 659, Volume 2, Tab 21.
Oh,
659. And you see Section A, procedure for removal of line content between berth 5 and berth 6, and then removal of liquid content. And then you would have seen that, and then you see it at number 4. It doesn't have 4 there, but if you check 1, 2, 3, 4, remove, then you see using air-driven pump. Could read that one. Approximately 300 barrels of line content to be pumped in Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited, etc., etc. And once level in the riser has dropped to 35, is that feet below sea level, a line plug will be installed. Now, this was accepted by Paria, this method statement.
Yes. The removal of line content between 65 Yes.
Could you give us an idea what you understand this to mean?
That the section that they needed to remove some of the line content between berth 5 and 6 so that a line plug will be installed, which they estimated that to be 35 feet below sea level and possibly approximately 300 barrels. But the intent of this procedure would have been to remove sufficient content so that they can install the line plug. This is all part of preparation works so that they can conduct the maintenance activities of cutting the line.
Yeah. But you're not telling us about the 300 barrels.
The 300 barrels, that's an estimation. Because, okay, the line, what you are seeing on that drawing is basically the U, right? Which I don't know, you may have done a calculation and estimated the amount of barrels there. But the additional parts for the elbows, for the line straight, and maybe that 300 is an approximate number what they estimated that figure to be. But the intent of it all, if I read it at face value, once the level in the riser has dropped to 35 feet below sea level, a line plug will be installed. So the intent was to get the line plug installed.
But when Paria looked at this, did Paria ask for any explanation? Do you know?
What explanation?
As to 300 barrels and then 35 feet below sea level? Because what you're telling us, it could give the impression that 300 barrels had to be removed, and also 35 level had to be shown at another part of the line.
No. This is saying that once level in riser has dropped to 35 feet below sea level, which is an actual number, a line plug will be installed. And the estimated amount might be about 300 barrels. The 300 barrels could be, for all intents, maybe 200, and they just say, well, round it up to 300. But the intent here, permit me if I read it wrong, but procedure for removal of line content between berth 5 and 6, removal of liquid content from sea line 36, diameter 30-inch line, sufficient removal to allow replacement of corroded section. And the last line is what they're trying to achieve, which is once level in riser has dropped to 35 feet below sea level, a line plug will be installed.
Okay.
You see, I understand what you're saying, but certain things inside this will change. During the process, for example, they remove spool completely one straight, but the intent at the end of the day is a clear objective.
But the purpose of approval of the method statement by Paria is to ensure that the work is done safely.
Right. So let's step back a bit, because these documents were created at the time of tender. At the time of tender, the contractor has all the information required to make a detailed method statement or procedure for the. So they would put what they best see, right? So, but they know that they want to go 35 feet to install the line plug.
Okay, but Paria.
So when they would have done, when after the award of tender, and then they have the specific site visits, and they are able to measure and estimate properly, they might have come back and say it's not 300 barrels. But they were clear in saying, if I read this again, 35 feet below sea level, a line plug will be installed.
But Paria accepted this method statement and awarded a contract.
Yes.
Would you agree with me that Paria had a duty in assessing the risk, to assess the risk to ensure that a Delta P situation would not arise?
No, I will not agree with you on that. Paria, if you step back in the scope, let me see. Spare me time because I'm not very familiar with this. But basically, Paria...
What is it you're looking for? Let me see if we can...
No, I mean, you'll get the time to look at it.
No, tell us what
Paria
it is.
was looking for an expert contractor, experienced expert contractor to execute this work. So it depends on this tender. These documents are to demonstrate that the contractor has a good understanding of the job and the requirements of the scope. It is understood after acceptance and award, additional information will be provided to the contractor, at which time he, with his technical expertise, will be bringing forward the hazards associated with his specific specialized tasks.
Yes, Mr.
Paria would look at the general risks, for example, those with respect to operational, but not expected to know all the risks of what the specialist contractor is to do.
Well, let's assume that I accept everything you say.
Well, thank you.
The point about it is that Paria undertook to assess the risk also, and based on that assessment awarded the contract. So do you think that Paria had a duty of care in ensuring that the risk assessment for the job and the method statement was safe?
Right. So again, in the tender evaluation stage, it is done more from a higher level in the sense that all the nitty-gritty details, you would expect that to be ironed out later on the award of contract when the contractor is now able to get good information from his site. I mean, I don't know how I can explain it better. I mean, before, for example, Chairman, you would have read all of these documents and you had an idea of what outside was. Yesterday, I'm sure you would have gone outside and have a totally better idea. The same is here. The contractor is not on current with all the details of the site.
Mr. Wee, just a second. Mr. Wee, I'm going to try and follow you here now. Are you saying that for a contractor to issue or put in his tender, he did so without a site visit first?
No. If you go through my statement, when there was a virtual site visit and the option of a mandatory site visit, I think. So yes, there is the site visit stage.
So he had the site visit stage prior to issuing his tender in?
Yes, that all forms part of the tendering process.
Right, I just wanted to be clear because I heard from you, you said site visit after they awarded.
That would be reckless to allow somebody just to submit a bid without sufficient details of which to put a reasonable tender bid packaging.
And the second question is, under your controller work system and in the planning stages, Paria wouldn't sit with any elected contractor and in partnership identifying hazards, risk assessments, however you want to term it. You just leave it to your contractors to do, or is it a partnered exercise under your controller work process?
It's a partnered exercise, not sitting directly with each other in a room. It's a partnered exercise in that the contractor prepares his method statement and risk assessment with the best knowledge of his expertise in the execution of the said task. He would know the specific risks. Paria would take that and also look at it and complement that with the risk that Paria has that is on his site.
So I understand that. My question is there an exercise or exercises where Paria, the operator, sits with the contractor and executes hazard identification, risk assessments, or you just say, contractor, give me your risk assessment, let me review?
Right. Review, and we would add, and we would come, if there's obvious risk for us, yes, but the contractor still has the responsibility to identify the specific hazards of the specialized work that he's doing. I don't know if I answered your question, but...
But in reviewing it, you will assess the risks.
The contractor would have...
But you were reviewing, would you assess the risk?
The contractor would assess his risk. We would take that the risk is properly assessed. If there's any obvious flaw or risk that was not considered, yeah, we're free to bring it up or question what he has.
So, Mr. Way, in effect, you're telling me that Paria didn't have the competence to assess the risks?
No, we're not saying that.
You're not saying
I'm saying that
So
LMCS would have provided, through their competence as the expert contractor, the risks that they saw with their job. Now, I don't know if you're expecting that Paria now would have the same expertise as the expert contractor to assess their risks.
Okay, I understand you.
But Paria being the side with respect to the management of the site and the management of a port would bring the risks of their side. So, for example, with respect to the ships coming and the hazard that plays with Paria would bring that in. So Paria would not be expected to say, hey, what, LMCS, you did not identify the risks of Delta P. Correct that? No. But if they had said, there's an obvious risk that they did not consider, let's say, an explosive environment, Paria would really say, wait, there's a risk here. And I think that is why you would have, as you read later on, why there's the insistence of a migration barrier.
Okay.
Not to jump forward, but...
We'll come to that. But you would agree with me that Paria supervised the works?
No.
No.
I will not agree with you on that.
You do not agree that Paria supervised the execution of the works?
Okay, so...
Do you agree that Paria supervised the execution of the works?
Paria did not supervise dedicated supervision of that job.
What Paria did?
Paria would monitor.
Monitor. Look at your witness statement at paragraph 23. At page
1276.
It says the role of the planner was to develop the scope of work supporting the tendering process and to oversee the execution of the project by the contractor. Is that accurate?
That is accurate what I have here, yes.
Yes.
So let's go ahead.
So Paria oversee the execution of the works?
Not to be interpreted as supervise the execution of the works.
They monitor it?
Yes.
To see that it complies with the requirements of the contract?
That too, yes.
Yeah.
In as much as is possible.
And according to, well, Paria, in respect of these works, your department monitored and reported on the ongoing works which was being done by Rajiv Mangali, your representative, and Houston Majat Singh.
Yes.
And according to you at paragraph 67 of your witness statement, at page 1283, yes. 1283. The said maintenance technicians receive daily verbal reports from LMCS of the progress of the works. They use these verbal reports together with their own observations to produce daily work reports, and they then submitted these daily work reports to the planner during the course of the project. So monitoring and supervising, Mr. Way.
I'm not seeing how you interpret that.
Okay, well, but you agree that what you said is accurate?
What I said is accurate that
okay. Look at paragraph 67. On the ground level, my department monitored and reported on ongoing works through Kensan technicians Rajiv Mangali, Houston Majad Singh, who reported to Paria planner Terence Rampasad Singh. They were situated mostly on site and rotated between berths 5 and 6, which are offshore and the offshore docks, and called Badger docks, which is on land.
Yes.
That is accurate, correct?
Yeah.
All right. What do you want to show? And can I show the witness, Mr. Chairman, 565 core bundle 2? If you go to page 565, you have core bundle 2, Mr. Why?
565?
Yes, 565. And this is the scope of work prepared by Paria, and your department would have been involved in this.
565.
3112, correct? Note video stream. You see at paragraph 3.1.
Sorry. What number you said? 560?
565.
Yes.
Right, you see at the top of 3.11, the contractor shall execute the following, okay?
3.11.
3.11, at the top of that it says the contractor shall execute the following, correct? You see that just at the top?
Well, I don't.
If you look...
565 you said?
No, if you look at 564 first, sorry.
Sorry.
564, just under the heading renewal of section SL riser, etc., then just under that, the contractor shall execute the following. And then there's the description of the works. And then you will see at at page 565, 3.1.12. And then you see at the end of that sentence, note video stream to be provided topside during work activity for Paria's representative. You see that?
Yes.
So you still maintain that Paria does not supervise the works?
I kind of thinking that there's a miscommunication here between what is supervision and monitoring.
Okay.
Supervision is dedicated on the job.
We'll take your answer.
Right?
Can I?
No, I need to say it because you're
He must be allowed.
Yeah, okay.
You are trying to say that you are saying that the monitoring is dedicated monitoring. Supervision is what we want, is dedicated supervision on the site. Paria monitors, meaning that Paria representative doesn't have to be on that site 100% of the time. The contractor official is to be on that site 100% of the time, supervising the execution of his works. This is the concept of the independent contractor. Paria will not supervise the independent contractor. It's their responsibility. Getting on to your point here now, note video stream to be provided at topside work during Paria. Paria just is asking for that Paria has an option here to monitor the live stream. Right? Because they might have considered this step critical, which was insert migration barrier. And they wanted confirmation that it was installed because this is in the hyperbaric chamber or wherever, and they needed to see it.
Why would they need to see it?
Because for Paria, that would have been a serious, this migration barrier would have kept hydrocarbons, kept that seal between hydrocarbons and any hot work to be conducted.
Okay.
So from a Paria, right, so you asked about the risk. The hydrocarbon risk is what Paria would be obvious to.
Okay. Anything else you want to say on that?
No, if you
Okay.
understand what I'm saying, I wouldn't need to say anything
I
else.
want to go to show you, I'm still on the
Yes?
evidence pointing out to you.
Yeah.
At page 570, look at page 570.
Yes?
You see paragraph 4.0?
Yes.
Right. Paria's responsibility. Supply personnel for organizing all work permits, certificates, monitoring contractors' performance and work standards, approving work done by the contractor, and carrying out quality assurance audits. You agree that is Paria's role and responsibility?
Yes?
And look at 4.4. Provide personnel for the acceptance of work executed. You
Yes.
agree that that is Paria's responsibility
Yes?
in respect of these works?
Yes?
And look at paragraph 4.5. Is it 4.5? Yeah. Yes,
Right.
to provide personnel to oversee isolation, de-isolation, depressurization, pressurization, draining, filling product from lines at berths 5 and berth 6. You agree with that?
Yes?
So Paria had a responsibility to provide personnel to oversee the draining of the lines.
Right. Not supervise.
Yes, right. And the purpose of Paria doing that is to ensure that the draining of the lines comply with what Paria agreed to in the contract.
To oversee, as I mentioned, oversee doesn't mean that you're there all the time, right? But you're right. That line is to provide to oversee the isolation, depressurization, and filling of lines.
Well, if according to you, it is very important for the line to be drained in accordance with the contract, because you as an expert will know if the line is dry and you're having a migration barrier, you could create a Delta P situation.
No, I didn't say that.
No, but... Okay.
I didn't say a Delta P situation.
Okay.
I said
Give me his affidavit. Give me his affidavit.
to create the barrier for hydrocarbons not to enter the workspace.
It's the way at paragraph... Well, before I ask you, would you agree with me that if in this matter, in these works, the line was drained, the line was empty, okay, or mostly empty, and the migration barrier was installed, that is to say the plugs were installed on that line, and the habitat came over the line in accordance with the works, that there would have been a latent Delta P differential hazard situation?
If the hyperbaric chamber was installed over and the plugs was installed and the line was empty, yes, there would have been a latent Delta P issue.
Right.
We know that now.
So therefore, if in relation to what I just read to you about personnel overseeing the draining of the line, and Paria recognized that you could have had a Delta P hazard if the line was overdrained, if I use that expression.
Okay.
Wouldn't you agree that Paria would have had a duty to oversee what was being drained?
Step back there, because you're talking about what is in the tender document. Subsequent to that, there was a bid document that we just read that LMCS had to, what we accepted thereafter was to remove 35 feet for installation of the plugs. So that would have now been the requirement of LMCS.
Well, LMCS had two figures, 300 barrels and 35 feet. But the point I'm getting at you, the point I'm trying to ask you, that if that was a dangerous situation, and you said it was a potentially dangerous situation if you had that with the line dry and the migration plug installed and the hyperbaric chamber installed. And Paria, this is in the scope of duty, which Paria accepted as a responsibility to monitor the works, to oversee
so the
the works.
migration barriers were installed for the hazard that Paria would have seen, which is the explosive mixture. The contractor, specialist contractor, should have seen that risk because that is, he is familiar with the use of hyperbaric chambers.
Sure.
Paria infrequently use a hyperbaric chamber.
Okay.
You say frequently or
Paria, the Paria would have only used that hyperbaric chamber previous in 2020. LMCS being the specialist contractor would have more experience in that. So we would rely on the expert.
Can I just be clear? You don't profess to be an expert in diving matters, and so I don't.
And hyperbaric chamber, no.
But you have said that you understand what delta P is.
After the incident, a better understanding.
Well, that's what I want to ask you about. Did you have an appreciation of what delta P is, before this contract was concluded, before it was even opened? Did you understand a risk associated with delta P, what that was?
No, because the contractor never contemplated that in his risk assessment.
Irrespective of this job, right? It's irrespective. Did you yourself have any kind of understanding of what delta P is?
With respect to the hyperbaric chamber, no.
Or irrespective of a even outside of that particular.
Yes, you would.
You'd heard of it before, had you?
Yeah.
And having heard of it before, did you understand the mechanics of it? You've got differential pressure.
Yes.
And obviously, if you've got pressure in one side that's greater than the other, it's going to push it till it finds its equilibrium, isn't it? Did you understand that as a sort of basic science, if you like? Yes?
Yes.
All right. But as I understand what you're saying is, it never entered your head to consider that as an issue at all, because LMCS had never raised it as an issue.
Yes.
Am I right about that?
Yes. As a specialist contractor,
Yeah,
they would be familiar with those risks.
And you regarded LMCS as being the specialist contractor?
Correct.
Right. Can I, in that regard, then, please, ask you this? Did you think there was ever any ambiguity at all about the extent to which the line was to be cleared? Whether it was to be completely cleared, partially cleared, or anything else? Did you have any? Did you understand there to be any ambiguity about that?
Okay. So from the tender document, I think it's clear that the line should be emptied sufficiently to install the plugs.
Right.
Subsequent to that, the development of the method statement would not have been under my purview. Right. So I would not have been involved in development of the method statements and the communication thereafter. But what last I would have seen would have been on the tender document with respect to...
Thereafter, you had no further interest in the detail of what happened. Is that what you're saying?
To put it lightly, yes.
I'm trying to lose some of the jargon because I don't follow half of it. So I just want to understand, so that we all understand. Your position is that you saw the tender documents, took them at face value. Thereafter, you had no further involvement in the detail or amendments
in
to
development of the details, yes.
Right, all right. So can I ask you to have a look at a document? Just tell me if you've ever seen it before. 598, please. Page 598. You see, this is described as an addendum. Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited, miscellaneous repairs and refurbishment works at 5 and 6 berths, main viaduct, addendum 1. Do you see that?
Yes.
Is this a document you've seen before?
Yes.
At the time or subsequently?
I would have seen this for the addendum when the issuing of the tendering.
Right. So the following are questions raised with clarifications. This addendum has to be signed and submitted with the technical tender submission. You know?
Right.
So,
Yes.
and the point of it, as I understand it, is that you're, where there is some ambiguity or some question that arises from the original works, that can be dealt with in this addendum. Question-answer session.
Yeah, this is clarification. This is the response to clarifications from invited bidders.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is being sent out. Who is responsible for pumping back from the berths to clear the lines with water?
Who's this, mine?
You see that?
Right.
Who's asking that question?
This would be one of the invited invited bidders.
The invited bidder, right. And the response comes from you, does it?
Yes, from Paria.
So the response from Paria is, the contractor is responsible for the safe removal of hydrocarbon content from the line and to ensure that the line is clear and dry. What did you understand that to mean?
Safe removal of hydrocarbon.
Yep.
And ensure that the line is clear and dry.
Yes. What does that mean?
It could mean, with respect to, it's a little unclear because it could mean, it didn't define the amount to remove.
No, well,
So it could mean from just below or the entire line.
would you agree?
If I was to read it.
Mr. Way, would you agree with me that at best it is ambiguous?
Yes.
And this, I mean, I'm not saying it's you. I appreciate
Yes.
you didn't write this.
It could be ambiguous.
But whoever wrote it, whoever made that response to the not unreasonable query that arises, your response, that is you, the company Paria's response, was, would you agree, at best ambiguous?
Yes.
Thank you.
But subsequent to this was the tender documents.
I'm sure there are many documents that came after this, and there's a scheme of work as well, which I anticipate at some point we'll get to. But I'm starting from the beginning because that's where we are at the moment. Where we end up is another matter. But at this stage, at any rate, in seeking clarification, which I assume this is all what this is all about, the answer is, at that stage, at any rate, ambiguous. One would hope that such ambiguity would have been cleared up.
If it was ambiguous to another contractor, they could have asked for clarification a bit further.
Yeah, well, it's ambiguous to you and it's ambiguous to me, all right? So one would hope that somewhere along the line, someone would say exactly what we're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. All right. We'll get to what happens later.
In respect of supervision, I just want to point out to you, if you can look at CB1 at page 28 and 29, that has to do with the permit to work procedure. And would you look at page 29, 1, 2, 3, 4 from the beginning. For the fifth one, stop the work if there are changes in site condition that increase the risk, or if new hazards are identified, promptly notify the site authority of these changes. Whose roles and responsibility is that one?
You'll have to scroll up for me to see.
Yeah. Isn't that Paria's responsibility?
Which one?
To stop the work if there are changes in site conditions that increase the risk of new hazards?
This is what page?
Page 29.
29.
Yes, the fifth dot.
I want to see the header. If it's 5.1 or, okay, so it's 5.1.
No, page. Yes, it's 5.1.
Right.
Just at the top. The applicant,
Yes,
right,
yeah,
is the person completing a work permit. The applicant must have the necessary competence, etc. Stop the work if there are changes in site conditions that increase the risk of new hazards, etc. Would that apply to Paria?
that would apply to the applicant, who can be a Paria, a Kenson, or even the contractor.
Or even the contractor?
So it would be applicable to the applicant.
And the applicant on the 25th was Kenson, so it would have been Kenson responsibility.
That would have fallen under his responsibility, yes?
Yes. And then if you look at the one above, continually monitor the job to ensure that it's performed in a safe manner and within the conditions prescribed in the work permit certificates and GHA risk assessment. He may sign the renewal section, etc., etc. That would be the applicant, and if it's Kenson, would be the Kenson responsibility.
Yes,
Yes.
to continually monitor.
Yeah. Now, you notice that it says there, continually monitor, not part-time, continually.
It doesn't say continuously.
It doesn't say what?
Continuously.
Continuous.
It says continually.
Okay.
Well, he's right, isn't he? He does say that.
Right, okay.
Is there a difference?
In the understanding from the HSC training for permit to work, there is a difference. Continually.
Tell him, he knows about
Continually. Okay, so this is specific to this permit, specific to the training. What I understand that continually is more periodically as compared to continuously
Okay.
in this instance here.
The next one I want to show you is CB 1033, Volume 3. And this is 1033. And this is Paria's work instructions, right?
Where are we, please?
CB 1033.
Got it.
Right. You see the document is an instruction prepared by Paria as to exactly...
Could I just come back to your question, because something just crossed my mind, just to make it clear for you, with the applicant, right? Because you're suggesting that the applicant is on the job, dedicated monitoring, dedicated supervising, right? The applicant in the permit to work system can have more than one job in progress. He can apply for one job in this. So it would be impossible for him to be on both sides at the same time. But the contractor official is the one who is supervising the work and needs to be dedicated to the job. So I just want to clarify that, because I think you're suggesting that the applicant should be on the job continuously.
But if for some reason a Paria person cannot be there, Paria can put somebody else in order to deputize for the time being.
Paria can do that to do the monitoring.
Yes. Okay, whatever you want to call it. Okay?
Not whatever, to do the monitoring.
Okay. You're calling it monitoring. And I for these purposes, I would accept that for the time being.
Thank you again.
Okay. I want you to look at that document, page 1033. And you see that it is a document by Paria, and is an instruction as to how the clearing of the line was supposed to be. So you see the title, Clearing of Line Between Berths 5 and 6?
Yes.
Right? Then you see the scope of works, clearing of section between berths 5 and 6.
Yes.
And then you see responsibilities.
Yes.
And you see the terminal operation manager has the overall responsibility for ensuring that this procedure is established by reviewing and approving this work instruction and ensuring the offshore team lead understand the requirements of this work instruction. You agree with that?
Well, yes, that is written there.
And it says that the offshore team lead has direct responsibility to ensure compliance with the procedure by reviewing and approving this work instruction and ensuring offshore operation team supervisor understand the requirements of this work instruction. And can I refer you to paragraph 3 and 4 of your witness statement? At paragraph 3, you said my role as team manager. My role as technical and maintenance manager is to direct the services of general engineering and central maintenance to the terminal operations in compliance with safety, engineering, and regulatory standards consistent with the business plan for Paria's terminal situated to so-and-so. And then you itemize at paragraph 4 what your duties are, and I won't go through all of them with you, but I go to number 7, ensure the effectiveness of the maintenance management system, including adequate record and knowledge management, as well as performance management and reporting to continually optimize the maintenance planning and scheduling process. Oversee project management and control for projects, such as major projects. Example, tank operates, berth turnaround, and Sealine and pipeline network repairs, replacement. Then at 11, implement HSE standards and ensure adherence to same. Communicate information effectively upwards and downwards. Those are accurate?
Yes.
Okay. I want to ask you a few things about line clearing, okay? Would you agree that the line clearing, if you don't know, say you don't know, okay? Would you agree that the line clearing was done in 2 phases?
The line clearing operations specifically I was not specifically involved with or the development of the procedure.
So you weren't.
So I think I would say let's stay away from this time.
Okay. Would you be able to help us, to tell us how many barrels of oil it had in the lines before it was cleared?
I believe it may be somewhere in the documents. Either pre or post.
I have a document. I'll show it to you, and you'll tell me if you agree with that. I think it's 2,000 or 3,000 barrels. Is that core bundle 2, page 564, and you would see just under 3.0 scope of work, estimate volume of product between isolation points, 2,000 barrels. Would you accept that?
I accept that that is written into the document, yes.
Well, you know or you don't know? You don't know.
I don't know the exact volume of the line.
You don't know.
Isolation
Okay.
points.
We can't really expect you to remember that, can we? You know?
Okay.
No,
I mean,
well, I think the Honorable here is expecting me to remember that, but inside of the document, it's an estimated volume of 2,000 barrels. I could see that.
But that figure is in the scope of works,
Yes,
which was prepared by Paria,
correct.
right? You are familiar with the daily work reports of Paria?
I'm familiar that there are daily reports, but normally I wouldn't really have a line of sight on that specifically.
But I want to show you something from the daily about the removal of the barrels of oil, right? And can I show the witness volume 2 of the core bundle 994 to 1019? I'll just point out something to the witness. 994. Where's my bundle? $994, Mr. Wade. Well, you got it, Mr. Chairman? Yep. Yeah. You have it, Mr. Way? Page 994?
I've seen it on the screen.
Oh, you see it on the screen. If you look at number 3 on page 994, you see in the last column, job status. Air blowing started 12:22 p.m. due to operation setting up to drain to tank, and air blowed until 1800 hours. A total of 798 barrels of oil was drained to tank. Okay? You saw that?
Well, I'm seeing it here,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Then you would agree that this, the daily report of Paria is in this form in respect of this kind of activity?
Yes.
Yes. Then we go to page 997. And number 3, mechanical, look at the job status. Air blowing started 11 a.m. due to installation of slip plank, and air blowed until 5:30 p.m. A total of 118 barrels of oil was drained. You saw that?
Yeah, I'm seeing it, yes.
Okay. At page 1002.
can we identify the dates that
I'm
these
sorry,
happen
ma'am?
as well? Can we identify the dates?
Oh, yes, sorry.
First one was on the 18th of January. This one was on the 21st of January.
Yes, I'm much obliged. I'm much obliged. At 10:02, that was on the 1st of February 2022, and it says at the first column, completed, installed 2 lengths of 6 feet 30 inches hose together with 1 length of 6 feet 40-inch pipe, and 6 inches, check valve from SL36 riser to SL66 riser to assist with phase 2 air blowing. And then if you go to, at paragraph 4, mechanical, level was checked and pipe estimated to be 3/4 full of oil contents. Then we go to page 1003 on the 2nd of February 2022. At number 1, air blowing was conducted between 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Onshore noted that they received 276 barrels of oil. Note started air blowing 11 a.m. due to lining up of tanks and waiting for pressure to build up. Then you see at number 4, level was checked after draining at PB 80 and pipe estimated to be 1/4 full with oil contents to continue draining tomorrow. Then at number 5, ongoing 2 slops barge was filled approximately 100 barrels of oil. Then at page 10004, the 3rd of February 2022, at number 1, air blowing was conducted between 1300 hours and 1500 hours. Onshore noted that they received 55 barrels of oil. Note started air blowing 1300 hours due to waiting on onshore to give clearance to start. Then at number 4, completed level was checked after draining at PB 80 and oil content was approximately 8 feet below T of riser. Then number 5, completed 2 slops barge was filled approximately 100 barrels of oil. That was the 3rd of February. Then we go to the 4th of February, 10005. Number 1, completed air blowing was conducted between 10:30 a.m. and 14:30 hours. Then we go to 10006, 5th of February. And then number 1, remove hoses from inside riser and install 30-inch solid blank at end. Remove temporary hose piping and check valve going to 6 inches to SL66. Sealine 66 and solid blank end. So, Mr. Ware, I think I have a duty to ask you because I just want to find out. You would not have an idea of how much oil was drained from topside piping or from the underwater piping?
No, I would not have.
No. I want to show you a letter dated the 20th of July, 2022, from Paria to OSHA, dated the 20th of July, 2022. It's electronic bundle 2906. I have copies that I could pass up the letter to the witness and to the commissioners and to the other side.
Copies for everybody else.
It's on the screen. And this was in response to inquiries from OSHA of matters, and I'll go straight to page 2906, the second page of the letter. Number 3, the rationale for utilizing the equipment in item 2 above to remove content from Sealine 36 diameter between berth 5 and berth 6. Response from Paria, and I read, an air compressor was logistically more practical given the configuration of the pipeline. The volume of hydrocarbon removed from Sealine 36 between berths 5 and 6 prior to the installation of the subsea slip-on flange 30-inch diameter as per method statement. Response, given the configuration of the system, it is impossible to segregate and measure the displaced volume. 5, the volume of hydrocarbon removed from Sealine 36 between berths 5 and 6 after the accident. Response, the volume of hydrocarbon removed is estimated at 125 barrels. The quantity is based on the estimated spilled hydrocarbon, 6 barrels, and the recorded volumes of hydrocarbons recovered in the sea manatee, 119.8 barrels. So, well, this is from Paria records. At paragraphs 85 and 86 of your witness statement, you gave an opinion about delta P. Page 1286 and 1287. And in that opinion, I'll ask you to read it, 85 and 86.
85 and 86?
Yes.
'85.
No, you can read it to yourself.
Oh, you tell me. I thought you wanted me to read it for everyone. Sorry.
If you read it to yourself, then I can read it, paragraph 86 for you. What day was the migration, by the way? And that was the same date at the habitat.
Yes, I've completed reading 85.
Right. And at paragraph 86, you said that the removal of the migration barriers by LMCS also open up the differential pressure between the pipeline and the chamber, which is likely to have caused a powerful and immediate suction effect, which pull and entrap the divers inside the pipeline and ultimately caused the death of the 4 men. Now, you told us earlier that at the time of this incident, you did not have any idea of delta P. But since the incident, you have read about it and you got some knowledge about it. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. And it's based on that knowledge that you acquired, you have put that, based on that knowledge, your paragraphs 85 and 86.
Yes.
Right. But since you have some knowledge of it, would you agree with me that it did not need, in the circumstances that day, it did not need the pulling of the plug to activate the delta P? I'll explain it to you. Would you agree with me that a latent hazardous differential pressure condition was created by the works which were involved in the removal of fuel oil from the pipeline and the installation of the migration barrier with the installation of the hyperbaric chamber. In other words, when that occurred, that created a latent delta P situation. And just for your information, the habitat was installed on the 13th of February, and the migration barrier was installed on the 13th of February. So would you agree with me that from the 13th of February 2022, there was in the habitat a latent hazardous differential pressure condition?
Okay, you mentioned the 13th that the hyperbaric chamber was installed and the plugs were installed.
Yeah.
Not in that sequence. The plugs were installed and then the hyperbaric chamber was installed.
Yeah.
Right? So with the plugs installed and the hyperbaric chamber installed and the hyperbaric blown down.
No, I'm not talking. Habitat installed, and sorry, the expression blown down. Yes, go ahead.
No, just trying to make sure we have the right, what we're saying here correctly.
Yeah.
Right? With the migration barrier installed and then the hyperbaric chamber installed over it, if it was the latent delta P with the plugs installed, yes, there would be that.
There would be that. So therefore, during the period, the 13th of February 2022 to the 25th of February 2022, you had a latent differential pressure situation, and you had plugs. Would you agree with me that if there was some leak on those plugs over that period, it could have caused an active delta P situation?
If there were leaks on the plugs, just stretching the imagination, because the plug is a tight seal.
No,
the mechanical plug is a tight seal.
Yeah.
And those, when installed by the contractor, would have done a quality test to ensure that it was good. They would have done a quality test to make sure that the plug was functional and acceptable to use. So
okay.
This is like a situation like,
all right,
I don't know, like.
Okay, Mr. Y, you do not want to assume that. So would you agree with me that on the 25th of February 2022, when the permit to work was issued for these works, there was existing in the chamber a latent hazardous delta P situation?
Yes.
Yeah. I have no question for you. Yeah, I think I should get this. At paragraph 52 of your witness statement, you referred to a meeting that you had with Mr. Terence Rampersad Singh on the 24th of February. I don't know what to do with my witness statement. I'll get it, sorry. Paragraph 52. Yes, at page 1280. And you told him that the works were to resume on the 25th. And then you told him at paragraph 53 what was discussed. You stated what was discussed. Do you have any, there were any contemporaneous notes made by you at the time of what was discussed?
No.
No. So when you recorded this, when you made this statement, you spoke from memory?
Yes.
Yes. And that was if you signed this statement on the 10th or 10th?
16th of August.
16th of August, 2022. And you were speaking from memory of an incident, of a meeting you had on the 24th of February, 2022. And you were able to remember all these details.
Yes.
And what about at paragraph 50 what? Paragraph 53. At paragraph 53, you gave details of what the scheduled work for Friday was.
Yes.
Correct? And you gave the scheduled work for what the work on Saturday was.
Yes.
What do you say? That was a meeting between LMCS and Paria.
That meeting was between Terence Rampasat Singh and Paria and LMCS.
And LMCS. So it was
Yes.
Paria representing Mr. Rampasat Singh, representing
Right,
by Terence
Paria.
Rampasat Singh,
Right.
and LMCS. Were you at that meeting?
No, I was not at that meeting.
So you have minutes of that meeting?
I will not have minutes from that meeting.
So you were not at the meeting,
Right?
but you remember this from memory?
Yes. Terence Rampasat Singh would have discussed with me after the meeting and say that work is going to start and these are the works planned for the weekend.
But all these works, you remember it in that sequence from your memory without looking at any document? Because you just said you didn't have any notes.
Yeah.
You were not at the meeting. Terence Rampasat Singh tell you something in February,
Right?
and when you have to do the statement in August, you remembered what he told you.
At the time of this, yes.
Yeah. Well, let's go to paragraph 56.
That was the day the minutes was signed. Okay?
At paragraph 56.
The date on the document, the date signed.
Yeah.
It's not the date when it started. I don't have exact date when I started writing, but when I started writing, I would recall what I wrote.
Anyway, you
No,
told us.
I'd like to understand that, please. It's a very long statement, so I can imagine it would take more than a day. So can I be clear? The document is ultimately signed on the 16th of August of this year. Give us some estimate of how long it took you to put this together.
I don't know, maybe 3 months plus.
So over a period of 3 months, you were writing this statement, a bit at a time, obviously not doing that on its own, I appreciate. So realizing that it was going to be necessary, you put this document together. Did you do it yourself?
Yes.
Did you do any...
Okay. I prepared the document.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether you type yourself or you get someone to do it for you. Did you type it yourself?
Yes.
I mean, did you cut and paste bits from other statements or other documents?
No.
Could you just have a look at page 1281 for a minute, please? Yeah, you see it right there. Stop. No, go back again. Go back. Just stop there. Do you see paragraph 56, which you're about to be asked about?
Yes.
Do you see that it starts with a list of numbers after that, doesn't it? After the introduction, as it were. Yeah?
Right, yes.
Is it just me, or is it that it looks as though the numbering that comes afterwards with all those different lines, setting out what they are at a different angle from the previous two lines, as if that bit has been pasted on?
Which number?
You see, it says, doesn't it, paragraph 56, the specific tasks required to be done by LMCS and the sequence of the said tasks from Friday, February the 25th, up until completion of the works were as follows, : and then you list 23 different things that were done, yes?
Yeah.
Right. Now, if you look at where the 1 is on that list,
Look at.
yes, on your page, it looks exactly the same on the page that you've got in
Yeah.
front of you, right? The number 1 on that list underneath the word from, you see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And the distance between that and the distance between the workday, the word workday and completion on the same lines. Do you see the distance between the two?
Yes.
Right. Do you agree with me that they are both, that they are at different distances? One is wider than the other?
Yes.
Right. Does it look to you as if number 1 through to number 20 on that page has been cut and pasted onto the page?
I typed it in and I know it wasn't cut and paste. If you look high up on the page, it's really, for me, it seems to be on the scanning of the document that would have twisted those lines.
Right.
And writing a document over some period of time is really formatting.
So it's really just the scanning of the document. Do you have the original?
I would have the original somewhere, yes.
Do you think you might make it available to us? Not today, but whenever you get a chance, try and dig out the original and let us have it. Do you think you could do that?
Yeah, I'll see.
Thank you very
Yes.
much. And just before I hand you back to Mr. Maharaj, this particular paragraph that you're about to deal with, is this again without notes?
This, yes, this would have been without.
Without notes. I'm only asking, I just need to understand what you're saying. You see, you told us the statement was compiled by you over a period of 3 months or so, leading up to the 16th of August. Right. And to the best of your recollection, you didn't use notes, you were doing it from your recollection. Is that right? Have I got that right? Or if I've got it wrong, tell me, put me right.
I would have referred to some documents.
Right.
But I would not have specifically recall what document.
Because it's difficult, isn't it, for anybody to put a statement together of, I mean, how many pages does it run to? It's 15, 20, there's 162 paragraphs. It's an extensive statement, and it must have taken you a while, as you've told us. I just want to understand, if you use notes, that's fine. I would just like to see them, that's all. Because otherwise, all we have is what you say in the statement. Do you follow?
Yes.
And where you've been already referred to a list of particular items, you say you didn't use notes, and I'm asking you if you used notes for this list of 23 items, and whether you, if you did use notes, where are they?
Right, and I'm saying that these were the sequence of events that what I would expect it to have been done.
And so where did you get it from, that sequence?
From knowledge of how the work should be done.
Right, so you're relying on memory.
And yes, in effect, yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr.
That's all right. Mr. Wade, does Paria have any record of the work plan for the 25th of February, of what happened at the meeting for the work plan?
And there would be the toolbox meeting.
Toolbox meeting.
Right, and there would be the permit. Whether there's a specific document that says what was the work plan for that day, I'm not aware.
But, okay. Now, in this sequence of the works that you gave at paragraph 56, you would notice that you set out is for the new riser section to remove as task 10 and 11, and for the plugs to be removed thereafter at task 20. Correct?
Yes?
And you're telling us today that you remember those sequences purely from your memory.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I want to show you the method statement number 116 dated the 4th of January 2022, CB 1051, volume 3. Oh my God, where my volume 3 is? Where my volume 3 is? I don't know.
One mic.
I wonder if before we go to that, we might just take a 5-minute break, a comfort break for some, and then we'll press on. Hopefully we'll be able to conclude, all right? So 5 minutes, please. All right. Apparently Mr. Wilson wasn't the only one.
Sorry, I was taking you, Mr. Wee, to CB 1051 Volume 3, which is the method statement at paragraph 56. And I was taking you to that in the context of the sequence of how you mentioned the plug was to be removed in your sequence of events, and showing you the method statement and what it says. So have you got paragraph 55 and 56 at page 1051? It's on the screen.
Yeah.
And
I
you would see what had to be done according to the method statement before paragraph 56 on the next page. Manually remove migration barrier from line. Manually deflate line plug and remove from line. So you would agree that the method statement has a different sequence to your evidence of the sequence of the plug, of the removal of the plug.
Yes.
Yes. Now, at paragraph 73 of your witness statement, 1284, you stated that the applicant for the, attached to the permit to work, number 9320, or LMCS revised method statement dated 4th January 2022, job safety analysis dated 10 December 2021, and other documents LMCS submitted, two method statements to Paria, one with ITB proposal and a letter in 2022, etc., etc. So the permit to work had this method statement attached to it, together with a job analysis report, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And if you look at the permit, well, would you agree that the job safety analysis, which was done by LMCS, was based on the method statement number 116?
It's based on the method statement 116, yes.
And that method statement was reviewed and accepted by Paria.
Going again what I said before. That,
Yes, I take into account what you said before, but it was approved and accepted by
I just want
Paria.
to say it again, that the specialist contractor would have identified the risks specific to this specialty, okay? And Paria would have looked at the operational risks and included those into the risk assessments. On that basis, yes.
Yes. And that method statement was attached to the permit to work.
Correct? Yes.
That was attached to the permit to work by Paria,
Yes.
together with the job hazard analysis.
Yes.
Yes. And would you agree that the job safety analysis did not identify a delta P hazard?
Where's the job safety? See the job safety analysis, please.
Yes.
Can I see it?
It did not identify a delta P hazard.
LMCS did not identify that, yes.
All right, but you told us earlier today that from the 13th of February, 2022, there was a latent delta P situation in the hyperbaric chamber.
And the date the document was developed?
No. You cannot recall that earlier this afternoon,
Yes, I recall that.
and
Right.
you said that there was a latent delta P situation from the 13th of February, correct?
Yes.
And Paria issued a work permit on the 25th of February, 2022, without identifying any Delta P situation.
But identifying that the migration barriers were to be used and did not authorize the removal of the plugs. So,
Okay.
the situation would have remained latent.
On the permit to work, you're familiar with the permit to work?
Yes.
That was issued. There is nothing on the permit to work to state do not deflate the plug.
But it's not written in to remove the plugs.
Okay, all right.
The permit to work would write what specific tasks are allowed to be done. It does not say what tasks not to be done.
Would you, I think I better show you the permit to work. It won't be long again, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, show me the permit to work.
Volume 3, 1074. Right? On the description of the job, you would agree that the form does not say sequence of job to be done.
Correct.
You would agree that the method statement showed the sequence of the works to be done.
No.
The method statements.
The method statement shows what works are to be done. It could be in that sequence, or it may not be in that sequence, based on specific conditions on the day. When the method statement is developed, by the contractor is not aware of all the operational risks or the operational situation that is going to exist on that day. For example, if the weather was raining heavily, he could not have gotten entry into the chamber. If there was a barge or boat alongside, even though he says on it's sequenced that way, it will not follow that. What the authorization is given for, what the site authority is deemed safe to conduct. So these tasks would have been allowed to be done.
So you are saying that Paria recognized that the sequence of work stated in the method statement can be changed from time to time, depending on the condition on the day.
Could be, yes. See, I think you don't understand.
No, I understand.
The permit to work is the site giving the contractor the authorization to do those specific tasks. The method statement is the expert contractor saying these are the steps to be done. But based on conditions or on the site, for example, in this, if you go lower down, it says migration barrier to be used, clearly written in.
Yes,
so
Mr.
how can you remove the migration barriers when it's installed there, migration barriers to be used? So that's what I'm saying. It's written inside there.
Okay. On the permit to work, it says line drained. What do you understand that to mean?
I didn't fill out that, so I don't explain it. But the line drained.
Would you accept it mean the line was drained?
Yeah, I could, okay, let's say, let's go ahead with that.
From your experience there, could the migration barrier to be used, it was to be used in relation to preventing any things to go into the pipe?
I can't speculate for what, but it would be the migration barriers there would have been used for purpose.
What is the purpose?
To separate the line from the hyperbaric chamber. And in that effect, once the migration barriers are installed, you've now kept the delta P latent. But from my statement, I would think it's more from if you had it from the explosive environment and the fumes, hydrocarbon fumes get into the chamber where you have men working on. It serves the both purpose.
Do you think there were any residual hazards for that job that day?
Residual hazards,
Yes, in respect of those works. That day?
if followed in the method statement, no. If followed, sorry, the work permit. Correction.
So, as far as you're concerned, with this permit to work, there was no risk of a Delta P situation happening that day.
Correct.
Even though you have told us that with the hyperbaric chamber being there with the line cleared, no risk from the 13th of February.
Once the migration barriers are installed, the risk remains latent.
Mr. Way, do you find it surprising that in this permit to work, you would have a blank for residual hazards, but you have additional precautions cared to be taken when weather conditions change? What you think is more important?
What you're saying there, I'm not clear.
If you look, residual hazards, blank.
Right?
Additional precautions care to be taken when weather conditions change.
Yes. And that is consistent with what I've just said. With respect to divers in the water, if the weather changes seriously, it affects the job. So additional precautions, but care to be taken when weather conditions change. I think that is quite clear. Divers in the water, it's a storm, you take the divers out of the water.
I want to ask you one more question.
Sure.
What do you think was more important for this forum, as Paria was concerned? To put a Delta P possibility or to put care to be taken when weather conditions change?
The one with migration barriers to be used.
Migration barrier to be used. Thank you. Unless I can be of any assistance.
Before I pass over, again, can I just be clear?
Sure.
I understand your position. Leaving aside whether it was your responsibility or LMCS's responsibility to have considered Delta P or anything like that, from the diver's point of view, the individuals who were going to carry out the job themselves, do you think that if they had cast their eye on the work permit that we've just been looking at, 1074, just put it back up, please, the work permit, looking at that document and scroll down to where it shows what documents are accompanying it, you see there, this work permit authorizes, as I understand the position,
yes,
authorizes the team to go and do that job.
Those specific tasks.
Those specific tasks,
yes,
right? The specific tasks, because it says specific tasks, doesn't it? Just scroll back again, please, to A. That's it. It says job, various maintenance works, and then it says specific tasks, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, and they are listed there, aren't they?
Yes.
By your colleague, Mr. Marjad Singh.
Yes.
Right. The specific tasks are what you want them to do.
Or what LMCS would have requested to be done on that day.
Yeah, well, what you, Paria, the firm, required them to do. These are the specific tasks we require you to do.
There's a slight difference.
Is there?
This is an independent contractor performing a job.
Yeah. You're telling them what they can do.
On that day in question, on the meeting that Terence would have had on the 24th, they would have explained to Terence what their plan is for the following day.
All right.
So based on their work plan for that day, the applicant prepares the specific tasks based on that.
All right. I think we're at the same place. We're in the same
I just
place.
want to make that clarification. It's not that part, because there's a thought here that Paria is supervising the contractor.
No, I'm not interested in supervising, all right?
So the
Mr. Way, we're going to get on much quicker if you just help me. If you don't agree with me, just say I don't agree.
Okay, no
with you, all
problem.
right? So my understanding of what this document is doing is to provide the specific tasks for the team that are going to carry out the job.
Correct.
Those specific tasks do not tell them, A, in which order to do them, do they?
No.
Or how to do them,
Correct.
do they? This document, scroll back please to 3, has with it as a standard thing, because this is a pre-printed document, isn't it?
Yes.
Which you then fill in what you think is important. Not you personally, but Mr. Marriott Singh. Eh? And included in that is the hot work certificate, the numbers given, we've seen it, all right? We get also a not applicable for confined space certificate, excavation certificate, not applicable, safe work method statement, see attached, right?
Yeah.
What does safe work method statement mean to you?
The method statement.
Right. Is it to do with how the job should be done as opposed to the tasks to be done?
It's the work to be done.
No. Safe method statement, please. I want to understand what it means to you. The safe work method statement. Does that mean how the job is supposed to be done? If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong.
Yes, how the work's supposed to be done.
It is, right, thank you. And that document is the one which we have, that you've been referred to, called the Method Statement 116, correct?
Yes.
Which is attached to this working document.
Right.
From the diver's point of view, I'm not looking at LMCS, I'm not looking at Paria, I'm just looking at the diver, the people who are going to carry out this job, all right? If they get this document attached to the worksheet, is that not telling them how to do the job?
Yes, but not work that is authorized for that day.
Well, obviously it includes an awful lot more.
Correct.
But it's telling them in relation to those parts of the job we're concerned with on that day. You were referred to, were you not, paragraph 56 and 57. Can we have 1051 back up, please? Go back just one page so that we put it into context for you, Mr. Wade, so that I understand, all right? Go to 51. 51 deals with perform dye penetration test on the welds to determine acceptability, right? So this is, again, to do with the integrity of the welds, isn't it?
Yes.
And then thoroughly clean and dry the area to be tested, perform dye penetration test according to product specifications, and it gives you the steps. You see that?
Yes.
And then the next one, 54, on completion of the weld, conduct a pressure test and flange weld. This is all in sequence, isn't it?
Generally, yes.
Yes. Well, if the sequence is wrong, you tell me, all right? 55, on acceptance, remove the test hardware, right? That's now you've done your testing, take it away, correct? Then 56, manually remove the migration barrier from the line. You say that's wrong, don't you?
I'm saying, based on what we know now, that order is wrong.
Well, based on what we know now, we know it's wrong because 4 men died.
Yes,
Can I just be clear, though? At that time, and I want you to do your best to help me here, please, because, you know, it's your firm who've attached this document to the work sheet, you see?
Yes.
And I just want to look at it from the diver's point of view.
Okay.
And I get this, and I look at this if I did, and we've already heard some evidence he didn't, or he can't remember doing so, but if you're looking at this, or you're being told that this is the order by some other diver, help me, please, to understand. He would have thought this was the how to do the job, wouldn't he?
No.
He wouldn't have.
No.
And he shouldn't assume that.
Shouldn't have assumed
He
that.
should not have assumed that. And the basis upon which you say that is because in your statement, you set out the sequence that it should have been in, don't you? Let me just find it again. Yes, you set out the sequence it should have been in.
Yes.
Right, in some detail. And we go to that at page 1281 of your statement.
Yes.
And that's at paragraph 56, the one I was asking about, where it's slightly askew. And you list there the 23 steps that you say needed to occur on that day.
No, not on that day.
Oh, sorry, not on that day. The day before and that day. Is that right?
To
Or is it a
completion.
longer period?
From the 25th to completion.
From 25th to completion. So that's the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think it was those 3 days.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It was another day. But anyway, those are the jobs that you needed doing. But were they intended to be sequential in your statement? Go to scroll up a little for Mr. Way, please. No, the other way. Sorry, down a bit. Yes. So you can see there. At 13, it says exit the hyperbaric chamber and return to the crane barge. 14, depressure the flood barrier chamber. 15, remove the hyperbaric chamber. 16, install scaffold platform. 17, measure and cut the top of the riser. 18, install flange top. 19, conduct a hydro test of the flange weld. 20, remove the mitigation barrier, inflatable installation plug. And then over the page, 21, reinstall furbished topside piping, etc. That's the order in which you expected it to be done.
Yes.
Right. Can you tell me where you got that from?
In discussions with Terence, Rampersad Singh,
Right.
the experience that you would pull the plugs from outside
Right.
and not inside the chamber.
Now, when I say where did you get that from, I mean to put it in this sequence in your statement, as I understood from what you said before, you weren't looking at any note, you were just remembering how it went.
Because now I understand the steps and how the job should be done.
Yes. It's through your own, how can I say, experience.
Yes.
And you've got a very considerable experience, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's all I needed to ask. I just need to understand that. Did you have anything?
Afternoon again, Mr. Way. Again, I intend to more interrogate the process and stuff off of what you said. One of the things in terms of the permit to work is part of your control of work process. Yeah?
Correct.
And the control of work process is owned by Paria, not LMCS.
It's owned by Paria, yes.
Great. So I heard you mention that you identified the contractor as a specialist contractor, so you depended to be advised by them because Paria doesn't have any competent diving personnel to assist you with planning or executing the job. So without that competent personnel, how were the control measures that were defined in the risk assessment verified as reducing the risks and can actually be delivered under your control of work system?
The control of the risk would have been on the responsibility of the contractor. On this job here, we selected a contractor that was competent in HSE management system. As a matter of fact, the contractor was store certified, the energy chamber store certified.
Which contractor are you referring to?
LMCS.
LMCS.
So they were store certified in HSE management systems by the energy chamber, the store implementation board.
Well, it's interesting. Okay.
They were high risk. I think it's high risk level. And their certification scores were 100%. So for the services that they were to provide for us, that was a very compelling that you contractor with a very strong HSE systems and culture to execute this job. So we would have depended on the contractor to execute the work in accordance to their safety standards.
Under your control of work system?
Under our control of work.
Okay. Now you said something about their story certification. What was that about?
If I know somewhere in the documentation there's a store certificate.
Right.
I could recall that. Right? The store certificate, they had a valid store certification for the period of the job.
And 5 months prior, I heard it in the room here, they had some prohibition by OSHA.
Yes.
And they got that clearance. Now, under the store guidance, if organization who has the membership of STO, if there's some prohibition, which would bring me to my other question around procurement, but I'm just making the point. If you have an incident under STO and there's a prohibition against you, you can have your membership taken. Was that the case with LMCS? And did your procurement actually interrogate that? Because the incident happened prior on your assets. So are you aware that?
No, I'm not aware.
Okay. So, but under these two, that is something that can happen. Their membership can be recycled. That would bring me back to my question around procurement. As I said, I'm kind of testing the policies, practices, and stuff. So again, without having any competent personnel on the Paria side, how is it that you, I don't want to use the word competent now, but how or what was the weighting or the criteria used from Paria, and how did you validate that as selecting a suitable contractor if you didn't have the competence on your side?
Okay, so the evaluation process was one where we looked at the HSE management. First of all, that the contractor understood the scope. So he was required to sign off on the scope and the addendum to ensure that he knew and understood and accepted the scope.
Just if I could interrupt, how did you validate that? How did you verify that then, if you don't have the specialist skills to determine that?
We would have evaluated from a higher level, not going down into all the nitty-gritty details of, because that, for us, we would have to rely on the expert contractor to provide that. So the contractor would have provided a method statement for us to look at, and on our evaluation, it seemed fair and reasonable. The contractor would always have provided a schedule that showed that he understood the sequence, he understood the job. The contractor would have provided a list of previous work conducted that of similar complexity, also to the equipment that he has and the competent people to execute the job with respect to the relevant documentation for, let's say, the cranes and stuff like that. So it demonstrated that the contractor for us was competent to execute the work.
But if you don't have anyone to determine, that's why you said you hired a specialist. What was the criteria you used to determine competency, or again, scoring and selection, I think?
Right. That's why we built into the scope that the contractor has the responsibility for developing, for provision of competent personnel for the job.
Right. Let's see how far we can go, please. You're next.
Mr. Wee, good afternoon. Kamini Prasad Maraj for LMCS. So let me take you right where Commissioner has left in relation to the specialist contractor that you're talking about. You're saying that LMCS was hired as a specialist contractor. Yes.
Give me a minute. Yeah, but I don't know where she's coming from, so I want to be accurate.
Concern yourself with where she's coming from.
If
you could confine yourself to answering the question, then we will get finished before the end of today.
The terms
if there's something specific you want to refer to.
Determine the scope of work, I can't remember, but yes, a competent, experienced specialist contractor. I don't know if that's the exact wording in the ITB, but yes.
All right. So let me take you to your scope of work, and this would have been coordinated from your office and department, correct?
Yes.
You would have had input in it as well. Can I have the introduction? It is page 4196 of the submissions bundle. Did you communicate this, that you were looking for specialist contractor to the vendors that the ITB went out to?
When you say communicated,
yes.
Verbally or in the bid document?
No, while they're finding it. So, yeah, okay, good. Did this specialist contractor that you were looking for, was that communicated when the invitation to bid went out?
I was not part of the meetings, so I specifically had to answer that question.
So, okay, so you're looking, Paria, you've been saying that LMCS has been hired as a specialist contractor. So that means you were looking for a specialist contractor to perform the works for the contract, which was eventually issued to LMCS.
Yes.
Right. So look at a document in front of you, please. It's your scope of work, and at 1.0 it says, Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited, Paria, is seeking to engage the services of an experienced and qualified construction and fabrication contractors for the execution of miscellaneous works detailed below. Is there, so I'm going to ask the question again, was there a communication that you're looking for a specialist contractor?
Right. That is why I said I wanted to see this before, but the chairman.
No.
So we were looking for experienced and qualified construction fabrication contractor.
Right, but not a specialist. You would appreciate that specialist would be something different from experienced and qualified. You can accept that.
For me, this is a specialist contractor in the construction and fabrication.
So for you, this means specialist.
This is specialist services, diving, subsea welding.
I'm asking you if from what your document, Paria's document, which went out to the contractors, if from what I have read, right, you are comfortable by saying that you have communicated to those contractors who would have been bidding that you are looking for a specialist contractor.
The specific words that were said in the
words, sir,
in the virtual meeting at the time of the tender, I am not aware of what was said.
No.
I was not part of that meeting. So what was communicated then? Well, on here, Paria is asking for experienced and qualified construction and fabrication contractor.
All right. Are you familiar with project management consultant?
Project management consultant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you explain to us what is a project management consultant?
Someone you can hire to provide the technical expertise for project management.
All right. In circumstances where there's specialist-oriented work to be performed.
You can choose, you have the obligation to, or you don't need to.
When you say you, who do you refer to? We're talking about, I am asking you in
a contracting body. Any company has the option to either to use the option of a project management consultant or not.
Isn't it usual in the industry where you are hiring independent contractors or contractors to perform works that you require them to do, to have a project management consultant when you don't have on board, like you have said earlier today, on board a specialist or a person duly qualified or a team qualified to...
It depends, but it's not a mandatory. It's not mandatory.
So it's optional.
It's optional if you
And
deem so.
Paria saw it best not to utilize that option to have a specialist consultant or a project management consultant, sorry. Yeah. And I would like to take you through the contract, the documents that you'd have sent. Can I have clause 6.1? Scroll down. Six 6.11, yeah. So if you can read that. Oh.
573. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one.
Can I get the document? Right.
Not on my
Right.
573.
Can you, the screen is turned toward you, so might I ask you to please, okay. Fine.
I'm sorry, I'm confused, I'm afraid. I don't know where we're
Is that
going
the
or
right
what we're doing here.
document?
Which document is it you want this gentleman to look at?
I have
6.11.
clause 6.11,
Right.
and
That's
that would
the
have
one
been
that's on
part of the
screen.
scope of,
Right.
of works.
Good.
Yeah.
Proceed from there.
Right. So it says here, the contractor shall instruct his personnel on the safety regulations, safe working practices, and conditions that are required for an industrial marine environment, and he may seek advice on safety matters from Paria's representative. Do you see that?
Yes.
All right. So you're saying this specialist contractor should seek the advice of Paria, who does not have the expertise.
Okay, again, you see, the specialist contractor, experienced contractor, is working on a specialized task. He is doing a job in an environment, a facility that has other risks. So, yes, he may seek advice on safety matters from Paria representative with respect to the other risk of running the facility.
But wouldn't he have been experienced in that environment? A specialist who's experienced and competent. That is what you're saying. I'm going with what you're saying.
Correct? He may
So
not,
why would he need to seek Paria's?
he may seek advice.
Yes.
If
And
there's
it's
some
written in
area
your
that he doesn't
contract
know, he wants
document.
clarity on, he may seek advice.
Okay. Can we go to 6.38? Right. It says there, the contractor is responsible for provision of the job safety method statement, job hazard analysis, risk assessments, which will be reviewed by Paria's representative. We've accepted that that is your process.
Yes.
Right. I know this will be a repeat of what Mr. Commissioner has asked you, but in the instance where Paria is not the expert in the reviewing of these documents, what is the standard by which the presentation from the company is judged and dealt with?
Run that question again.
So when LMCS would have presented to Paria its method statements and job safety hazard analysis and risk assessments for Paria to review, being that you're not the specialist or you don't have the understanding and expertise to the extent of a specialist, right? How would the submissions from the contractor be properly adjudicated upon?
That would be on the onus of the specialist contractor to be competent to develop the method statement and risk assessment and identify the hazards.
So then that process of submitting for approval to Paria, it's just a named process. There is no purpose behind that.
The purpose is to ensure
mechanism.
that the contractor develops a method statement and hazard analysis, would have gone through a due process of developing a method statement and a job hazard analysis and risk assessment.
And I understand that, sir.
Right.
But in developing those documents and they're sending it to you for review and approval,
Right.
right? By what measure
mentioned
of
again,
standard
Paria
are
will
you
not
going
be
to
respon- Paria will not be
verify?
able-
Sorry.
Paria will not be able.
I think, if I may say so,
Yes.
what Mr. Way is trying to say is there's no point in buying a dog and embarking yourself.
Yeah.
And he is saying, in
Yes.
effect, that, you know, he has employed this specialist, rightly or wrongly, without any verification, whatever we conclude. But what he is relying on is he's saying, I'm relying on LMCS as the specialist. Am I right?
Yes.
And therefore, there is no room for me to review it. That is what he's saying. Whether we accept that, of course, is a matter for in due course.
And I can move on from this. I'd like to take you through the method statement prepared. 116. 116, method statement. Page number. On the core bundle, 1048. Right. So you'd have familiarized yourself with this document by now. We've had two persons question you on it. I would like to take you to paragraph, to number 86 on page.
1052.
Thank you. '86 reads, repeats steps 15 to 28 to install migration barrier and mechanical plug just below proposed location of new topside flange.
Can you scroll up the page so that Mr. Way can see the heading under which this is?
15. You see that?
Yes.
All right. So would you like to see what the steps are from 15?
No, okay, that's okay. I need.
You're familiar with it because you're familiar with the
Ask the
methodology.
question, and if I need to refer back, I'll.
Well, I would like to see it, so can you put it up on the screen, please? 15.
So what do you understand by repeat steps 15 to 28?
To repeat,
In the method of the work. Now you're saying that the plug, the mechanical and the inflatable plug, the barrier in particular, that's what you've said. The barrier was to remain. And that the barrier consists of, as we know, the two plugs.
yes,
Right? So you're saying that was supposed to remain in the riser section under the sea and not to be taken out.
correct.
So now I'm asking you, in relation to this step here that is on the method statement, as part of the methodology in the performance of the work, what do you understand when it says repeat steps 15 to 18 to install migration barrier and mechanical plug just below the proposed location of the new topside flange? What is this step saying to you?
To reinstall the plug.
All right. And in order to reinstall the plug, wouldn't that necessitate the taking out of the plug from below? Would you accept that to be true?
In that method statement, yes.
Okay. So in other words, you would accept that according to the method statement, the plugs were to be removed, the mechanical barriers were to be removed.
I'm not saying that.
You're not saying that?
I'm not saying that. That is conflicting what I said. The method statement, the lines that you mentioned with removal of the plugs, right? That should not have been, contemplated then, according to my statement, because you would have the ingress of the fumes.
Okay. Can you tell us who Terence Rampersad Singh is?
Terence Rampersad Singh was the planner, Paria planner, assigned for offshore works.
All right. All right. There is can you go to page of the supplemental witness statement bundle, page 2924? So this is an email from LMCS to Terence Rampersad Singh on the 4th of January 2022. Can you scroll? And if you can you please read that out? Can you see that sufficiently clear?
Yes.
Yes. Would you care to read that?
You want me to read it out loud?
Yes,
Or
you
personally?
can. You can read it out loud.
No, I'll read it personally. Yes?
Have you read it
Yes?
to yourself? For the benefit of everyone. Can you get it for me? 1 second, please. I would care to read that out loud for the benefit. Not all of it, just. It says, see attached documents for caption job with revised method statement. To answer the question asked, question 1, will the inflatable plug also be raised to the top of the new riser section when the cutting and welding of the new flange above water? And the answer was yes. Both the inflatable plug and the solid barrier will be reinstalled at the top before hot works begin. Steps 86 has been updated. Will the new, and then question 2, and then it goes on. Will the newly installed flange above the water need to be hydrolyzed within the chambers? Okay, so it's the first question that I would point you to, right? So that would have been a question that was asked and it's been answered. And at the foot of that email, we see Ahmad. You see that?
Yes.
Okay, so I can tell you that Ahmad is a representative of LMCS. He is the HSE officer. Yes?
Yes. So are you saying
And
that
he's saying to Rampersad Singh in a specific email dealing with the methodology that has been submitted to Paria, what exactly is to be done?
Okay.
And you see that?
Yeah.
And do you see that it's clear that the plugs were to be reinstalled at the top?
What I see there is Ahmad, based on what he was, with respect to the job, he did not see that there was a hazard at step 56.
I'm not asking about a hazard.
No, because had that question been asked, I don't know who asked that question, right? And I don't know.
I
don't know
appreciate
who
that.
asked
I
question.
appreciate
But
that.
The question here,
Well, hang on just a minute. Can you scroll down so that Mr. Wake can see?
From
No,
Kazim
scroll the
Ali
other
to
way.
down.
Sorry, the other way. So you can see the top. Yes, it's using, on the face of this, Mr. Kazim Ali's email address and being sent to Mr. Terence Rampersad Singh's email address, but it's signed off by Ahmad. All right, so that's what we have.
yeah, but I don't know who sent the questions. But if it's, what I know is Ahmad is answering some questions with respect to the reinstallation of the plug. So,
No, Ahmad is answering to answer the question asked. So he's answering.
I mean,
he's
Ahmad seems to have
irrespective of
picked
who.
up the first
Sir,
the
Just one
first
at a
change.
time, please. One at a time. Let Mr. Way
yes,
speak.
go ahead, Mr. Wynne.
Ahmad is saying to reinstall the plugs. So that Ahmad could have seen that the plug should not have been moved. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying exactly what
if-
is being said,
if
that the
someone-
plug has to be
If-
reinstalled
I
to
don't
the
know who
top.
asked this question, but I'm speculating here.
I don't need you to
If-
speculate,
so-
sir.
so
I'm
if
simply
they
asking
ask
you
this
to.
question-
I'm not going to permit this, right? If you can ask a question, he can answer it.
Certainly.
Right? When he's finished answering it, then you can ask another
I'm
question.
guided, please.
Would this not show that Ahmad could have seen that step if step 56 and 57 was incorrect, he should have picked it up here. Because someone asked why he reinstalled the plug. He knew that if he removed the plug, then you would have hydrocarbon vapor making explosives. So that's one. So I think that is what you're trying to tell me?
No. I'm just trying to confirm that indeed Ahmad is
Right.
indicating that the plugs
No,
will be reinstalled.
Yeah, that's what he's saying
Thereby,
there.
the inference that the plugs will be removed, because you have said that the plugs ought not to have been removed.
Right, and this here says that Ahmad should have seen that he should not have removed the plugs.
Where in that statement is it in that Ahmad should not remove the plugs?
Because if someone asked him to reinstall that plugs and he was thinking about it, he would say, if I remove the plugs inside the chamber, that's a hazard. So he should have seen that this was not feasible. And then further, the reinstallation of the plugs would not have been possible because there was this bar, as I mentioned earlier, at the top. So, to me here, this should have, LMCS with this here, Ahmad should have specifically seen that the 86 steps could not have been done because of the bar, the lifting bar at the top. And he should have seen that 56 and 57 steps. It should have alerted him to 56 and 57. And that's what I'm reading here.
So in other words, what you're saying to us is that from the information being given by Ahmad to Mr. Rampersad Singh, somebody should have said that this ought not to have been done.
I would expect Ahmad to have said that. Looking at that.
Okay.
But I don't know the full context of the email, so.
And I appreciate that. I would like to ask you some questions on the permit to work. Yes.
Before you do that, I think it's only fair that you draw Mr. Way's attention to the preceding email. This is an email.
Below?
Yes, this is an email that you've referred him to of the 4th of January, Tuesday, the 4th of January, 2022 at 3:59. There's an email preceding that, which is at the bottom of the page, which is the 4th of January, 22 at 1:22. And this is from Kazim Ali again, and it appears to be to Terence Rampersad Singh. So there are two emails.
Yes, yes.
And they're replying to each other. If you go over the page, it says, "Good day. See attached documents for the above captioned job." This is from Ahmad Ali to Rampersad Singh.
Yes.
And he includes in that the method statement, the job safety analysis, and the lift plans. Are they not the documents that were attached to the work schedule?
That is certainly, those were the documents attached.
So you can see there, Mr. Way, that the very documents that I was referring to that have been attached to the work that day, or the days that were to be done, are the very documents that apparently seem to be attached and being sent to your Mr. Rampersad Singh.
Yes.
Yes. So can we take it, since he was the person who was carrying out the meeting and authorizing the work, he attached these documents to that work permit, which you referred to in your statement, which we've spoken about.
Yes. Those, well, not he specifically would have attached it, but those were the documents that would have been with the permit to work.
But he says, doesn't he, in this email, the job here is to perform the work of replacing the leaking section of SL36 riser at Berth 6. Work tasks include, and he sets them out, and we didn't read them all now, but you can see what he's saying there, can't you? It supplements, does it not, what he's set out in his method statement?
Tasks include installation riser.
Yeah.
So the steps that he has here with Ahmad writes here, work tasks include installation of migration barrier and line plug,
Yes,
installing the hyperbaric chamber onto the existing riser,
yes,
which at this point would have already had topside piping removed, displacing all seawater from the chamber with breathing air, cut the leaking riser segment off, evacuating and flooding the chamber, removing the cut section, the barge deck, installing new riser piping, not remove plugs and install, installing new riser piping,
yeah.
displace water again, copper flange faces and coat specification, removing the chamber and cutting a new riser pipe to length above water.
Yeah.
And after that step would have been the removal of the plugs.
Well, it doesn't
He said
say
it
that.
here.
Sorry? Doesn't say after that would be the removal.
Well,
of
at this
plugs.
stage here, for him to return the system to Paria, he would have to then remove his isolation, which is the migration barrier.
Yeah.
So on face value, after cutting the new pipe riser, pipe to length above the water, the next step would have been remove migration barriers.
And
It's
that's
written
why
there.
I showed it to you.
Thank you very
because
much,
that on
Chairman.
it- no, of course. But that on its own, one can readily appreciate that that must be how it was understood to be. What I'm not clear about is what then comes that you've been asked about changing the steps 15 to 28 and then repeating them at 86. You see, we'll scroll back again, please. Question 1. Will the inflatable plug also be raised to the top of the new riser section when cutting and welding for a new flange above water? Is that a question suggesting that the plug is going to be moved? The inflatable plug is going to be moved?
Yes, this is a suggestion that the inflatable plug will be removed out of sequence as what he had in his email
Yeah.
preceding.
Quite. And then the answer is yes, both the inflatable plug and the solid barrier will be reinstalled at the top before hot works begin. Step 86 has been updated to reflect this now, blah, blah, blah. So without looking at the works, the statement, the method statement, without looking at that, that would suggest that you're taking the chamber off and then reinstalling the plugs at some point. Is that what you understand it to be?
Removing the chamber and reinstalling the plug. The step here?
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
you see, what I want to know is what you understand this to mean, right? Because on its face, it suggests, it doesn't say anything about the removal of the plugs in the first email, does it?
No.
No. It talks about putting them in.
Talks about putting them in.
Right. And then this second email is talking about reinstalling the plugs, and I want to know whether you understood this to mean after the hyperbaric chamber has been taken off, before it's been taken off. What did you understand this to mean?
This would be after the hyperbaric chamber has been removed.
Right. So the plugs would have been removed at some point, you say, also after the hyperbaric chamber has been taken off.
Yes, after the hyperbaric chamber is removed, then you remove the plugs.
And then put them back in again.
No, there would be no need to remove the plugs after the hyperbaric chamber is removed.
That's what
Only when you finish
That's
the
what
job.
I want to understand. Are you putting the plugs back in again after you've taken them out and after you remove the hyperbaric chamber?
If the plugs would not to be removed, if the plugs were not to be removed,
Well, they've got to come out at some time.
right, but at the end of
There's
the
a block
job.
in your pipe, right?
At the end
So
of the job.
you tell us that your understanding is that these plugs have to come out when the hyperbaric chamber has been removed.
Correct.
Right. And then, but why would you be putting them back in again?
You would take them out when the job is finished. There was no need to put it back in.
Right, so this
Had it
is,
not been,
to use a quaint English expression, gobbledygook. It means nothing, does it? What is the point of putting them back in again?
Okay. This here went on the assumption that the plugs were removed inside the chamber,
Yeah.
and then to reinstall them from outside the chamber.
Right. So it was clear, at least to Mr. Rampersad Singh, that that's what they were going to do. If not to you.
I don't know, because I don't know what he would have read and what he would have thought of.
No, well, we'll ask him in due course. But, I mean, just on its face, Mr. Way, so that I understand, please.
Yeah.
Because I've always understood your evidence to be quite clear about this.
Right.
That this hyperbaric chamber has to be removed first before you have anything to do with touching these barriers.
Right. In my statement, the steps I said was remove hyperbaric chamber.
Yep.
And then cut to the required length.
Yep.
And after that work is finished, then you are able to remove the hyperbaric. Then you are able to remove the plugs.
Right.
If you moved it out of sequence before, you would have then have, fellas, before you put on the new riser, you would have had hydrocarbon vapors entering the hyperbaric chamber.
Yes, we're departing from the issue
Yeah.
here now. I just want to know what the point of putting them back in is.
In this statement here, it is considering that the plugs were removed inside the chamber successfully. Yeah. And then there was additional hot work that was required to be done again. Right. So the plugs need to be installed again.
So take them out, then remove what this is saying. Take them out, remove the hyperbaric chamber. There's more hot work to be done, so put them back in again.
Yes.
Right. That's what you understand it to mean, is it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sorry to have interrupted. I'm conscious of the time, but we are going to proceed.
I'm grateful. So you've touched on hydrocarbons. So I'd like to move to the hydrocarbon point. In your witness statement at paragraph 85, you say this, and please allow me to read. More importantly, the removal of the migration barriers would have caused a dangerous disturbance of the atmospheric conditions inside the hyperbaric chamber and the differential pressure between inside the pipeline and inside the chamber. With regard to the former, it would have allowed the hydrocarbon fumes from the pipeline to enter the chamber, which would then contaminate the breathing air inside the chamber, right? And I think that's the point that you have been making in relation to the removal of the barrier, in relation to the aspect of the safety mechanism that it provided with respect to the hydrocarbon. Do you know the content of the kind of liquid that was in the 36 Sealine?
Fuel oil.
Fuel oil. All right. And what can you tell us about flashpoint?
With respect to the flashpoint of fuel oil?
Yes.
I don't know it offhand.
Okay. But can you explain to us what is a flashpoint?
The point at which the hydrocarbon would ignite.
Will ignite? Or the vapors start rising?
I can't recall. Flashpoint. Just help me with the definition, because
Sorry?
I mean, do we need to develop this? I mean, I think we can all appreciate that we don't want to be breathing in fumes from hydrocarbons. And if that's what he was trying to safeguard, then that seems to me entirely reasonable.
Well, if I may, can you please find page 76 of 76 of the core bundle. So we have here so this is a Paria Fuel Trading document. Yes?
Yes.
Right. And you will see fuel oil. And then we have some description below. Let me take you to line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. Vapor density. Do you see that?
Yes.
All right. And it says that it's heavier than air. Do you see that?
Yes.
Can you explain that to us?
That the density of the vapor is heavier than air.
Right. So in the hyperbaric chamber, can you tell us what is introduced in the hyperbaric chamber for it to have a dry environment?
Normal air.
Air. So in other words, what it's saying is that in simple lay language, the density or the vapor density of the fuel oil is heavier than the air that is introduced in the hyperbaric chamber.
At standard temperature and pressure.
Standard pressure. So in other words, there would have been less likelihood of there being an issue with respect to hydrocarbon inhalation that leads to some unsafe environment.
Okay. That is, you have to consider other factors,
Certainly.
right? One, temperature.
Right?
The temperature would affect the density,
Yes.
meaning that if it's hotter, it would be able to mix. Also, the air has, in the hyperbaric chamber, there's air coming in the hyperbaric chamber, for one, to keep the pressure in. So
Right.
there are air currents inside. So with air currents inside and the line open, air is going to enter the line and displace the air, right? The air is coming into, so it's difficult to say that there's no hydrocarbon coming in, but there definitely will be hydrocarbon coming in.
All
So
right.
as part of the risk assessment, you would isolate it so you don't have that possibility. You install a physical barrier. And that, so yes, I understand you alluding that if it's full of, if it's vapor that is heavier than air, it's not going to enter the chamber.
Right.
No, it's not water. Water will not rise, but water will evaporate. In this case here, the vapor, the VOCs, even though it's dense, they're heavier than air written here, with the air currents inside it, because you have air blowing in the chamber,
Right.
it's going to stir it up.
All right. So let me take you to the third line above that line across the document that you're seeing. Right there. Sorry.
Third line.
It's okay. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The sixth point, flash point, 660 Celsius. No, we're still on fuel oil. Right. So the flash point is 66 degrees Celsius. And that would mean that at that point in time, 66 degrees Celsius would be when the vapors would become a danger from a safety point of view.
Okay. Define flash point again for me.
Well, you define the flash point.
You were telling me that is the temperature at which it evaporates. Is that what you said?
That is what we said.
Okay. Trying to remember my basic level physics, but evaporation can occur at any temperature.
All right. So it's not necessarily at 66
You
degrees.
can have evaporation occurring at 25 degrees.
All right.
And you can, but the flash point here is 66.
And you were explaining just now about the environment of the water, or the environment around the liquid within which the vapors would be emitted.
So
And that
talking
would
about-
have
okay.
that would have a bearing in relation to the
I'm
flash
gonna call a
point.
halt to this. I'm sorry, I'm going to call a halt to this. 66 degrees centigrade is about 150 in old money, Fahrenheit. I don't see how this really is going to help us come to any conclusion. What he is saying is that he is mitigating, at least in part, the possibility of these gases coming into the chamber. I don't see anything wrong with that at the moment.
I
Whether it
understand,
is only a
Mr.
remote
Chamber.
possibility or not, it seems to me not an unreasonable precaution to take.
And in addition to the flash point evaporation, there are dissolved gases, dissolved hydrocarbon in the fuel oil.
Right.
That can evaporate also, or can diffuse out, or come out a solution in the fuel oil.
Enough.
But-
Move on, please. Next question. Enough.
I'm grateful. So let me take you to the permit to work, which is on 1074 of the core bundle. And I'd move quickly in relation to the specific tasks. So we have here, and I'll read it out very quickly, specific tasks: to remove and install 50-inch flange, remove and install 30-inch riser pipe, remove 30-inch solid blank, conduct pressure tests on flange weld, remove chamber and blank top of new riser. Can you say within these steps, these specific tasks, can you point us to where the new riser is bolted on or make up to the flange of the old section?
The step, install 30-inch riser pipe.
All right. Can we go to paragraph, your witness statement, paragraph 56, where you would have listed the steps to be taken. And I would like to point you to number 11. That says make up mate-in flanges. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Right. And the making up of the mate-in flanges, the actual completion of the connection between the old riser section and the new riser section, correct?
Yes.
Right. And you would appreciate that in the specific task mentioned in the permit to work, that has not been listed. You're saying that it is the installation.
Okay. The task is install 30-inch riser pipe. To install it would include the making of the flanges. In my description, I would just put a little bit more detail in what would have been required.
So you're more detailed than your explanation is a lot more detailed than what has been the specific tasks listed in the permit to work.
Yeah, because
Yes.
the purposes are different. I wrote that here for the commission to get information to understand this as clearly as possible. So I put a little bit more steps into it. So to say that was the reasoning.
So inherent, so then you will accept that inherent in the explanation of the specific task that is listed in the permit to work are steps that are not necessarily explicitly stated.
There can be, yes.
All right. And would you accept that one of those steps is indeed the removal of the barrier?
No.
The plugs?
No.
No?
No.
But we're removing the chamber
Remove chamber? Yes.
and leaving the plugs inside. That is what you're saying was what had to have been done,
Yes.
irrespective of the fact that we would have seen the method statement that said otherwise and an email correspondence that
That is in my
implied
state-
otherwise.
Yeah, that is in my statement.
Thank you. All right. I'm trying to move as quickly as possible. I would like to go back to some things you've said this morning, Mr. Wee. In answer to Counsel for Commission, you said that LMCS had lost its standby diver and had no one to assist. Do you recall that?
Had lost a standby diver. I recall something of the nature, yes.
Right. Do you mean its rescue diver?
Standby diver would also be in term of rescue diver.
All right. And it has no one to assist. Were you aware that Andrew Farrow was present?
Andrew Farah was the dive supervisor.
Right. And do you know one Dexter Guerra?
And the Dexter Guerra, yes.
And you're aware that he's also a diver, a PADI certified diver?
Yes.
With LMCS.
Yes.
So it wouldn't be true for you to make the statement that there was no one to assist.
Are you saying Dexter Guerra was there?
Yes.
If you, for this project, LMCS would have provided an organization structure and manpower. If you, on the list of divers, Dexter Guerra's name was not listed as a diver. He may have the diving capability, but he was not listed as a diver.
We're dealing with an instance of emergency. Would you agree? We have a certified-
I have to review it. I have an idea that he used to dive. I wasn't sure if he was able to dive.
That's fair.
Because I don't know his condition, so
You would have,
that would be for the dive supervisor to decide.
sorry?
No, go ahead.
You would have also said that LMCS had no plan in place in relation to what had happened after the emergency. Yeah?
They didn't come forward with any plan of response.
They did not come forward to the IMT, to you, to anyone in specific?
To the site coordinator or even to...
Right. So the site coordinator would have been Catherine Balkisoon?
Yes,
All right. And she would have been informing the incident command management
she
team.
would have been the communication to the incident commander, yes.
And she did not communicate any plan that was communicated to her from LMCS.
Ask that question again.
She did not communicate to the IMT any sort of plan or request by LMCS in relation to the dive-in.
No.
No. Are you aware that there was communication between Andrew Farah and Catherine Balkisoon?
I don't know.
Have you been familiar? Are you familiar with the name Conan Beddoe?
Yes,
Conrad Beddoe?
yes,
All right. And these are divers?
yes.
And were you aware on the day in question, that's on the 25th, that these Paria had arranged for their quick entry onto Paria's compound in response to the incident?
I know Paria would have aided in some divers to come on the site, yes.
Right. And would you agree that that was for the purpose of executing a rescue plan, a rescue effort?
Yes, they were there for a rescue effort.
Right. And they were supplying manpower and equipment, additional equipment.
Yes.
Yes. And these two men were not related to anyone who would have been sucked into the pipe, to the best of your knowledge.
I'm not familiar with their family and their friends.
Okay. I think I'm happy to say, Mr. Commissioner, that those are all the questions that I have for Mr. Wee.
Well, if nothing's coming readily to mind, I'll take advantage of that. Thank you. I see somebody with his hand up.
Thank you very much, sir. On behalf, of course, the family of Kurban and
You're
Yusuf
going to have to
Henry,
be very brief, I'm afraid.
I shan't. I'm never very long in these matters. Thank you so much. Sir, you were part of the incident management team, correct?
Yes.
You're a technical man. You're a technical person, technically minded, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes. How would you rate the management of this incident on that day? How would you rate the management of the incident on the 25th that caused 4 men to perish? How would you rate yourselves? You heard the chairman,
yeah.
we do not have all evening, please. Take your sip of water.
Yeah. I would rate it as excellent.
Thank you very much. 4 men died on an incident that you were to manage, and you consider that excellent. Thank you very much. You have a good memory because you were telling us that you were able to put your statement together from memory. Give me the names of the 4 dead.
Qasim Ali Jr.,
Yes?
Faisal Kurban,
Yes?
Rishi Nagasa,
Yes?
and Yusuf Henry.
Excellent. That is excellent. Now tell us this. What is the highest priority after an accident occurs?
Stabilizing the site and not putting other lives at risk.
Stabilizing the site, meaning property, correct?
Not, yeah,
Yes?
no,
Yeah, no, make up your mind, sir. We don't have all evening. Yeah. Stabilizing the site, you said as the first priority.
so that you don't continue to have the hazards and danger to other people.
To other people. So at that
Secondly,
moment, listen, I got
You
your
won't be
answer.
finished. You asked me a question.
Go ahead. My lord, please don't take the time out from me, please. Yes.
Right? And also to ensure that further life is not lost.
Thank you. Is that the end of your answer? You appreciate first responders on a daily basis, whether police or firemen, put their lives at risk to help others. You agree with that?
Yes?
Yes. When was the first moment you went down to that site where these men died? You.
Personally,
Yes, yes, you.
I would have gone on the site on the site, and my statement would have it.
I am not interested in your statement. Tell us now. Did you even go? Sir, did you even go?
Yes,
Allow
I
him to
went to
look
the,
at- allow him
I
to look
went
at
to the
it.
site.
Right, allow him to look at
The anxiety of time.
But you also have to understand my
I
role.
don't have to understand. You'll answer the
You
question.
have to understand my
I don't
role
have to
and-
understand anything other than you answer the question. When was it that you first went
Chairman.
on site?
Chairman, so in my statement, the first time I visited the site,
Yes.
the incident of itself would have been on item page 1293. At around mid-afternoon, Colin Piper and myself visited the field operations at Berth 5 and 6.
What date?
Sunday, February
Oh,
27th.
God. Sunday. This thing happened, what, Saturday? Or when was it? When was the incident?
The incident occurred on Friday.
Oh. Saturday didn't go, Sunday arrived. Right.
But
good.
you have to
I
understand,
don't-
you
please,
have to
I don't have
understand
much-
the
you-
roles
my
and
lord, could you
responsibilities
guide
of
this
the
witness?
relevant parties in the emergency response team. My role was not the site coordinator,
Yes.
right? So as we mentioned before, Catherine Balkisoon would have been
Yeah.
on the site, relaying information back. The requirement was not for the logistics to be on the site.
So we got that. Let's
but
move forward.
I just want to be clear.
You're very clear. I think everybody understands your position.
Right.
So Catherine was the point person at the time of the accident or shortly thereafter?
Shortly thereafter.
Who was Paria's point person at the time of the accident in that area of the site?
Paria point person with respect to the permit to work.
Whatever it was, the point person who is there with
As
some
I
level of
mentioned,
let me finish so you could get a proper answer to us, that had responsibility for Paria's site while work was in progress.
With respect to the work, Paria did not have a representative on the site specific to the work at that time.
Excellent. You had a camera belonging to Paria looking on to the work? Yes or no?
Yes.
Right. Who was manning that?
Andrew Farah.
Thank you very much. Now, this is so obvious, but I need to put it for the record. Do you consider air to be extremely important to you or any other human being? Yeah? Oxygen?
Yes.
Right. This is a water environment. There's a grave danger of drowning. You appreciate that? When one works in a water environment. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Did you have any concern about the quantity of air or oxygen available to persons who may yet be alive, who may be in the water or in the pipe?
Yes.
Good. What time frame did you consider, did you consider that to be a matter of urgency to get to men who may be alive, who may have limited access to oxygen or air? Yes or no?
Right. And at that time,
Yes
we
or
allowed,
no? Did you consider it urgent?
at that time, yes, with
Thank you.
LMCS being the contractor
Yeah.
responsible
Everything is
for the
LMCS.
emergency.
We're talking about you are representing Paria. I'm putting questions here to you.
But I would not have been the one with the divers.
No, of course not.
Paria would not have been the one with the divers.
Wash your hands.
So how? I'm not washing my hands.
You
I'm
are
being clear-
incident
I am
management.
being clear to
all right,
you.
all right.
Yeah.
You're not
There's,
listening.
just a minute, just a
Well, I'm
moment.
getting both now.
Just a minute. We don't have a jury. It's just us two, all right? It's just us two. And I understand your enthusiasm on behalf of the families, but please try and contain yourself a little.
And
all right?
if the witness will contain
And-
himself and answer the questions.
Just a moment.
I'm most grateful
Just,
to you, sir.
I think I know how to handle this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So,
If you address the question,
Yeah.
and then if you want to add something, I will permit you to. All right. So answer the question. Then if you say, "But I would like to say something extra," then you'll be entitled to do that. All right.
Thank you.
thank you. incident management team. It was part of your responsibility to manage the incident. Is that accurate?
Correct?
Yeah. Did you consider it urgent to find or locate those men, whether alive or dead, and in particular if they were alive?
Yes.
Yes. Let me take you to the best, to what you may have said. That around 6 o'clock you learned that there was a survivor and that the men were in the pipe.
Yes.
Right. At that point in time, did you or your team consider sending in even, forgive my inexperience or lack of professional knowledge on the matter, but something like an air pipe or air hose into that, so that if men are in a air pocket, that you may be able to supplant some of the oxygen or air for them? Did it even cross your mind?
Yes, and that would have been a LMCS installed, because at that stage, the only access would have been in the hyperbaric chamber.
Beautiful.
With divers needing to access it.
Yes.
So at that stage, for those first 3 hours, to make it clear, the access to it could have only been by LMCS divers.
Wow.
Or any diver that responded.
Thank you much. So that if, assuming the worst, that LMCS did not do anything to help, you were saying, oh, it's their responsibility, I have no further responsibility than that? Is that what you're telling us?
We have responsibility for it, but at that stage, there's only LMCS with the divers responsible.
Thank you very much. You heard the name Michael Kurban. You know that name?
I've heard the name Michael Kurban.
Do you know what time he would have been there together with others?
He would have been there just around the time when Kurban was coming out.
Kurban was coming out. We could only pray and hope.
Christopher Budram, apologies there.
Yeah. You knew he was part of the effort to retrieve Christopher Budram.
Yes.
Yes. You knew that he was willing and able, ready, willing and able to go into that pipe to save his own father. Do you know this?
Yes.
You have told this, sorry, my lord. You have told all of us in the nation that it was a decision that it was too dangerous for persons to go in. Is that accurate?
I don't know exactly when that decision was made, right? But it would have been prudent for Paria to advise that you need to know the conditions in the line to conduct a rescue.
Right. You are aware that the Coast Guard have indicated through most learned senior counsel, Mr. Maraj, have indicated that they took instructions from Paria in relation to this matter?
No.
You don't know this? That's all right. Do you know that Michael Kurban was prevented from going in to save his own father?
No, he was not prevented from going in.
You were present?
No, I was not present, but reports coming in.
Yeah, reports from whom?
From the site coordinator.
Give me the name.
Catherine Balkisoon.
Beautiful. That he was never prevented. He made no effort and was told you cannot go in. Is that what you're telling this country?
He continued to dive even with being advised not to go in.
Thank you so much. So he was making efforts. So you think he went fishing? He went diving for fish? What do you think he went in there for?
He went in. I don't know if he physically went in the line, but I know that he may have went in the hyperbaric chamber.
Sir, Mr. Maraj very brilliantly conducted, and there's very little for me, but except to ask you this. You said that you all spoke to Christopher Budram around 10 o'clock, 10 p.m., yes?
Yes.
How many hours after the incident is this? Around 7?
The evidence is 4. 4 hours.
4 hours. No. This is not when Budram was retrieved, my lord. But when the incident, the accident occurred, to the time you spoke to Budram was how long?
It will be 7 hours.
7 hours. To that time, you were unaware of any official Paria controlled or LMCS controlled effort to go into the pipe to retrieve anyone?
No, there was no control effort from LMCS.
Thank you so much. You said you listened to the conversation with Mr. Budram. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is
Yeah?
accurate.
Anybody took an audio recording of that conversation?
No.
No. So what we have is a record made by whom? You said there was a written record of that conversation. Who made that record?
There would be that of the scribe.
Who made the record?
I don't know who would have been the scribe on that day.
But it will be part of your team, wouldn't it?
Yes.
You appreciate you have an interest to serve into taking away any level of responsibility rather than admitting it. You agree with that?
No.
You don't? Thank you very much. Now, when Budram was brought out, you had Paria persons on site.
Yes.
Yes. You knew that he was speaking and shouting at that time?
I know he was speaking, yes.
Right. Did you make any effort to ascertain what he said when he came out?
That would have been with the team on the site.
Yes. Did you make any effort to ascertain what that man said? Because you were so eager to speak to him, you waited until 10 o'clock to do so.
As I explained
Listen
earlier,
to my question, sir. Did you make any
no,
effort?
you can't frame the question in a way which is not part of the evidence and make it sound as though it is. The question you can ask him is why it took so long. He has already answered that question and said that they had tried over a period of some time to get a hold of Mr. Budram and were unable to do so.
I appreciate the hour of the day, but my question isn't that at all. My question is whether he made any effort to ascertain what Budram said when he came out of the pipe. Sir, would you answer that?
that would have been LMCS to report that into the incident command.
So you had Paria persons on site, yes? Did you ascertain from Paria this, what's her name?
Right.
Catherine? Huh? Miss Catherine Balkisoon, who was there, as to what this man said when he came out of the pipe? That is your official. Did you make any effort to ascertain from her what the man who just came out, who is the best person to tell you the conditions in the pipe, what he actually said?
We'll leave that. I can't answer that.
Of course
we'll leave
not.
that the one who was
Sir,
there specifically.
would it shock you to learn that he said, go in, words to the effect, the men, your father, Michael, your father is right behind me, the others are in, they have an air pocket, words to that effect. Would it shock you to learn that today?
Did you hear that from him?
Actually, the country has heard it. The man gave sworn testimony, and we have evidence of Michael, who was present. We have evidence from Corey. We have evidence from others. So let me hear you
And
now.
Similar, they all have interest in it.
To lie about this.
I didn't say that.
Oh, well, what are you suggesting then when you say they have interest? Because you have not found out from Catherine what the man said when he was brought out of the pipe. Is that accurate? Up till today, did you find out what he said? That Catherine was present, what he said when he came out of that pipe?
I found out what he said from others subsequent to the event.
When? Subsequent when? What are you talking about?
Maybe the following weeks.
But you were interested, with all due respect to you, sir, to find out the conditions within the pipe. Isn't that what you told us?
Yes.
Right? And one of the reasons you wanted to find out is to ensure that it was safe enough to engage a rescue mission. You agree with that?
Correct.
Yeah? And the best person, the best evidence that you would have is what the man said when he just came out. Do you agree with that?
Not necessarily.
Wow. So, tell me something again. In your opinion, when was the decision made, or the view formed, that the men were dead?
That would have been somewhere on Sunday afternoon.
Sunday. Between Friday afternoon, when this incident occurred, to Sunday, what efforts were made by any diver that were authorized by Paria to go into the pipe to rescue these men? Because you said now that you didn't believe them to be dead until Sunday. So let me hear. That the country here, what efforts were made between Friday to Sunday to send anybody in to retrieve these men?
From Friday to Saturday, the period was used to collect data and inspection in the line, to develop a plan for the rescue of the individuals.
That never occurred. The rescue, because you got your information, you think it's a bureaucratic exercise you were in?
No.
Or a life-saving effort? Which is it?
It's a life-saving effort.
Right. Which life-saving effort was made between Friday and Sunday? Tell this country. We need to know. My client's family needs to know.
Right.
Yusuf Henry's 11-year-old daughter needs to know. Tell us.
With respect to going into the pipeline, a plan needed to be devised.
Yeah, I hear about your plan. What efforts were made?
Right, the efforts were to establish the safety inside the line.
My God.
Without putting other people's lives at risk.
Yeah, and there were persons who were willing to risk their lives to do so. Isn't that correct?
And part of the, and as I mentioned
Listen to me, you will answer what I ask you. There were persons who
part of the
were...
principles
my Lord,
of rescue is
ask
not
him?
to put other people's lives at risk. It would have been a whole different scenario had Michael...
Mr. Way has the right to answer your questions. I understand you feel a little constrained in terms of time.
Yes.
But you must allow him to answer the question, right?
Okay.
You can't just fire the second one straight at him before he's finished the first answer, right?
I appreciate that. I will do the human thing and allow you the time for you to collect your thoughts and take your breath. Okay? You are concerned more about the other person's lives who may go into rescue. Is that what you're telling us?
That is part of the factors in it.
Part of the factors.
You cannot send someone into the line with unsafe, and then you end up with a different situation.
Mm-hmm. And the situation we ended up with was what? 4 dead men? Is that it? No effort made to save them? Is that accurate?
If you send...
No effort
if
made.
you send someone inside with an unsafe condition in the line, and as you know the conditions inside the line, you could have ended up with losing another person.
And if a person...
It's like running into, if you know someone is running into a building that is burning and is falling, to run into that building burning, to save someone, you are putting yourselves at risk that you yourself may die.
Yeah.
Just a moment.
Isn't
just
that
a
what
moment.
firemen do?
Just a moment.
Sorry.
Of course that's right. If it was your father, would you?
If it was my
Don't
father.
answer that question.
Yeah, that is...
I'm so sorry, my Lord. I missed what my Lord said. Huh? Yeah, exactly the point. Listen, forget about, do forgive me, forget about father. Remember I asked you about first responders? Firemen do this on a regular basis throughout the length and breadth of this world. You agree with that?
Yes, because,
Yes.
They are trained and
Thank
prepared.
you.
They are
And you-
equipped with equipment to conduct those rescues.
What
You are
other
saying-
equipment did they require to go into this tube? His Lordship produced us as hula hoop and showed us what it is, the confines. What other equipment did you require for somebody to go in there with?
What hula hoop?
The size, to put a very, very clear indication as to the size of the pipe. What other equipment would you need to go in there other than a person who has an oxygen supply, a long enough line, and possibly a rope to go in? Listen, let me finish. To go in, right, with the oxygen line for himself, and possibly also to give those who are still surviving oxygen. What other equipment did you require? What other equipment could you have required?
Diving equipment, air equipment.
Yeah, you had diving equipment, didn't you?
But you need
Did
to know
you
the,
have diving
you need to know the
equipment?
conditions in the
Have
line,
to
even
let
the
him
location.
answer.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, let me just, I understand your compassion,
No,
and we
that's
all
compassion.
have that compassion.
It is
Listen.
rage for the country. The country has rage for what you all did.
No.
Yeah, please. Come on. You have to. I understand, but you have to contain yourself a bit.
Yes,
right?
of course. Of
Please.
course, of
I'm sure lots of people have rage, and we've heard it already. But your counsel, you should try not to have the rage. All right.
Thank you. And you're making it so difficult.
No.
Yeah. You had diving equipment.
Was it the right diving equipment?
Did you find out? Did you find out?
We relied on the experts to advise.
Yeah. Did you find out that there was not the adequate equipment to go in there?
We relied on the experts to
Forget about
advise.
relied. Did you find out? You,
We relied on the advice.
Incident management team member, did you find out what was required and whether what was required wasn't available?
What was required was a safe,
We're talking equipment now.
right, a safe plan that would identify the equipment required. So
While you're planning man dying.
without a safe plan,
Yeah.
you would not have the right equipment. So you would be sending someone down into a pipeline. I mean, you saw the hula hoop. And to be honest with you, the hula hoop, to try to compare that hula hoop to a 30-inch line that is filled with water and oil, 40, 50 feet down, horizontally for 1,200 feet across,
Yeah.
to rescue men that you don't know where they are, you
Right.
don't know the conditions of the line, and to say now you want to know what equipment you have, you don't even know what conditions you're going to face, where the divers are,
How could you in
and
good
what
conscience say
condition
what
they
you're
are,
saying?
to say something like that. You are putting other people's lives at risk.
How could you in good conscience say what you just said? Because Budram came out of that pipe, you agree?
Boardram cable doesn't necessarily mean that it's safe to go back in.
I agree. It may not be
You agree?
safe. It may not be the safest.
You agree?
I agree it may not be the safest thing. But Budram came out. He was rescued. He said certain things that the father is right behind me. Go get your father.
And what I understand from the reports, he went in,
Uh-huh.
and he did not. He went as far as safe as he thought so.
As far as the line permitted. And you had access to unlimited lines, didn't you?
Paria, LMCS had
Everybody
had
who
access.
came there came with some kind of equipment. You know what a line is, right? A hose. You agree with that?
Yes.
And you could attach, you take as much as you could, you put another length. You know that, you know that, right? You're the oil business.
I am not a diving expert, and I
No,
don't know the
but common
details of it.
sense. You could
But
add to the length. You could add to the length. He came back up asking for more line. You know this?
so then why did LMCS not provide?
Listen, because they were prevented. This Coast Guard was there. You cannot go back in.
That is not true.
Really?
The Coast Guard never prevented anyone.
You were there and spoke on behalf of the Coast Guard?
Reports coming back in.
From whom? Your own
Catching
people?
back. Yes.
Yes.
I asked, you said now several times that the Coast Guard did not prevent anyone from going in.
What I understand.
Let me ask the question. You said that several times. Would you have regarded it as wrong for the Coast Guard to prevent someone from going in?
If it was deemed unsafe to do so, and if the Coast Guard would have prevented them from entering, that would have been the right thing to do.
The Coast Guard told you that it was too unsafe and nobody should go in there?
Specifically reported that to someone else in the IMT.
No. We're talking to you. You are here. Did the Coast Guard tell you that it was too unsafe and they will not permit anybody to go in?
With
to
the
pipe?
reporting lines for the IMT, I was not be liaising with the Coast Guard.
Right. So you
that-
do not know what the Coast Guard said or did in relation to them
That would
making
be
a decision.
reported, but
Oh,
that
listen, let me
would-
finish my question. I'm trying to be disciplined and hold back a lot of other things. Yeah? You are not in a position to tell this country, his lordship, that the Coast Guard did not prevent persons from going in to save other persons.
That's a question?
Yeah.
The report's coming back to me through the IMT that the Coast Guard did not prevent people from entering the line. Paria did not prevent people from entering line.
So no one was prevented from, as far as you are concerned. Is that accurate?
That is true.
So you're saying that Michael Kurban would be untrue if he said that he wanted to go back in, but that he was prevented by the Coast Guard and all that, and including Paria staff?
Well, in that case, that would have to be untrue.
Wow. You know that Michael actually went into the pipe and came back out?
Well, I heard a report of that.
Right. So having gone in once, you saying that he would be lying about wanting to go back in a second time. Is that what you're telling this, all of us here?
I understand he went in as far as he thought safe and he came back out.
So it's safe or as far as the line will take him?
As far as he thought was safe.
Right. You talk to him?
Reports coming back, we going around.
From whom again? Give me a name now. I don't want to hear reports. Who told you he only wanted to go as far as he considered safe? Who told you that?
I can't recall.
Of course not. Because it is not true what you are saying. He wanted to. There were others who were willing to do these things. Not just Michael, to go into the pipe and save other lives, their brothers, their fathers, their friends, their colleagues. And because of Paria's position, and under the authority of Paria, they were prevented from going into that line, into that pipe.
The divers stopped on their own accord.
Oh, thank you. You
After
know what?
Paria continued advising that do not enter the line.
Who continued
They
advising?
stopped Paria.
Paria, exactly. Advising.
That the conditions in the line were unknown and it would have been unsafe to continue diving.
Yeah. I advise you not to do so. If you do so, I will deal with you. You know how that works, right? Yeah?
No.
No, you don't. You know what analysis paralysis is?
Let me take some time to think about that.
You take some time.
How much
Thank you
longer
so
do we
much.
think we're going to be?
No, I'm finished. I'm saying let him take his time now. He can analyze as much as he wishes. God bless.
Thank you. Well, you can understand perhaps the somewhat hot-headed approach, but anyway.
I do take serious umbrage to that national statement you just made.
Well, you know, I've been where you are many times.
Of course.
And I've been accused of exactly the same. So
Well,
that's why I permitted you to a certain degree of latitude.
I take it
All
as
right?
a compliment. Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Peterson.
Yes, Mr. Mutu. Yes, I have a few questions.
Mr. Mutu, you're going to do this as well?
Yes, and hopefully
You've
just
been burdened today, haven't you?
doesn't feel that way. May I have one moment?
Yes, of course you can.
Mr. Wayne, I have a few questions for you. Let me apologize in advance. I can't sustain the drama of Mr. Ramadas, so you're going to have to bear with me. So you were taken...
All right.
Mr. Ramadan wants to speak again?
Saying if it is that you're going to go down that line about making me the issue here, I'm doing my job, sir, with all due respect, and I have clients whose pain that is, incomprehensible.
Mr. Ramadan, he's accused you of a little drama.
Yeah.
I think we've all seen a little drama.
Well, I am Dramada in some minds, but I am who I am, and God bless.
I allowed it, as you know. You
job
need
as
not
well.
get so excited about it. We all understand. We all understand exactly who you're representing and why it's important that you should be allowed the latitude that I've granted. And so let's keep any further comments from of Mr. Ramadan to ourselves, shall we?
Yes, of course. Mr. Way, you were taken to the work permit on the day in question. That's at 1074 of the court bundle. It's actually on the screen, I believe, in front of you at the moment. So can I ask that he be taken to the foot of that work permit, just at the bottom of page 1074? And just, right, can you stop right there for me, please? Thanks. And you see there is section C with a heading in bold entitled acceptance, yes?
Yes.
And there's a space for the contractor official to sign, yes?
Yes.
And the contractor official there would be someone from LMCS?
That is correct.
Good. But the term contractor official, that is a specialized term under the work permit system, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, and there was a line of inquiry made of you today as to how the divers may or may not have understood the permit. You remember that?
Yes.
Good. I'd like to take you very briefly to the permit procedure. That can be found at the page I have in question is at page 31 of the core bundle. Can the witness be shown that, please? And if you can be taken down to item 5.6. Right. And I'd like us to just look at that very briefly. The heading is contractor official. And am I right in saying that that's the reference to the contractor official there is the same reference to the contractor official that we just saw at the foot of the work permit?
Yes, that is correct.
Good. Now, LMCS personnel were trained in that work permit procedure. Was not one of the contractual requirements for the job?
The contractor official, yes.
Yes. And that procedure identifies, and we're going to come to it, certain responsibilities for the contractor official. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Good. So let's look at it together. This contractor, this is the second sentence. The contractor official is officially nominated by the contractor as a signatory on the work permit and certificates and must be at least the level of a supervisor. So that the signatory to the work permit would have been someone holding the position of at least an LMCS supervisor. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then the contractor official is required to have certain responsibilities and certain knowledge of certain matters. And I'm keen with the 6 or 7 bullet points here, and let's just go through them. He's required to have a clear understanding of the job and the different steps involved. He's to be knowledgeable of the hazards associated with the job and the necessary controls. He is to be responsible for the work and for the safety of all contractor employees associated with the job. So in those circumstances, it's the LMCS contractor official who would have been responsible for the safety of all the divers on the job. You agree with that?
Yes.
And he's to maintain a log of persons of each work site. He's to ensure that all equipment is suitable for the job and in good working condition. And he is to remain on site at all times. And I think this goes to what you were saying earlier. He's to remain on site at all times or to be represented on site by a suitably competent and authorized alternate. This is the important bullet point. It also provides that ensure that contractor workers, and in this case would be the divers, comply with all precautions on the work permit and certificate. Yes?
Yes.
Would you therefore agree with me that it's a contractor official who is responsible for ensuring that the LMCS divers on that day complied with all precautions on the work permit?
Correct.
And we know from looking at the work permit that it says a migration barrier is to be used. Correct?
Correct.
And would it be correct to say that the use of the migration barrier is a precautionary measure?
That is correct.
So would you therefore agree with me that it was the responsibility of the contractor official of LMCS to ensure that the divers were specifically made aware of that precautionary measure?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions for Mr. Wee.
Just from that, can I understand you, please? There is no issue between anyone, I think, that a barrier was and should have been used, correct?
Yes.
I think we all accept that they were used and it was wise that they should be used. The issue here is not that they were in use, but when they should be removed, isn't it? Because you're saying that they should never have been removed until the hydraulic chamber had been taken off. That's your position, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. And that any suggestion that they were permitted to do so in advance was wrong.
Correct.
So may I have one follow-up question?
Of course you may.
Is there anything on that work? Is there anything on the work permit that suggests to you that for the tasks to be performed on that day, the use of the barrier was limited in duration?
Can you ask that again?
Is there anything on that work permit that suggests to you for the tasks that are described that the barrier was to be used for a limited duration?
No. The barrier was to be used for all the steps identified.
Thank
Specific
you.
tasks.
Thank you.
Mr. Wee, one thing I'd like to ask you on the permit to work system, or out of the overall control of work system. We just heard the roles and responsibilities of the contractor, but I want to take you to 5.4, volume 1. Page number 31. Yeah. 5.4, the area authority and the senior area authority. You want to read it, or I can read it out for you? Or? Read it out. Okay, I'll read it out. The area authority is the facility owner who audits the precautions, conditions laid out in the safety certificate by the competent person to ensure they are adequate for the job, taking into consideration simultaneous activities on the facility. For the permit to work system, the area authority shall be someone holding the position of lead or any equivalent or higher designation and is appointed by respective manager. The area authority shall audit and specify additional conditions where necessary on the safety certificates, taking into consideration legal requirements, company rules, and business objectives. Approve the list of precautions on the safety certificates. Review the GHA for adequacy. Coordinate all jobs under his area of control. You understand it as I read it?
Yes.
All right, so if you've indicated that no one on Paria had the competency to do this, how would you verify this or validate this? Or how is the area authority in your present controller work system able to do this?
Able to the area authority shall audit and specify additional additions where necessary for the safety certificates, right?
Yep. The safety certificates
Like
offer like the supplemental certificates attached to the work permit.
right.
Yep.
Yes, the hot work certificate and
Yeah.
the excavation.
Yep.
So yes, he should be able to do that.
But again, so I think I already made it in terms of a competent person able to validate, like let's just say any of these supplement certificates, the risk assessment, the GHA.
Right.
So if you offer that Paria didn't have anyone competent to do it, this is under your controller work system. So I take what the gentleman said about the responsibility of the contractor, but I also offer Paria does have some responsibility in the control of work in issuing a permit to work.
Right. And as I said before, the risks that he would be very much familiar to bring to bear on the GHA were those risks more from the operational side of view or any plain risk, obvious risks on that of the experienced and competent contractor.
your position has been, as it has been right from the beginning, if I may say so, is that you regarded LMCS as being the specialist, and therefore they were the ones to tell you what the risks were. And
Yes.
if they didn't, then it's their fault. That's, as I understand it, what you're saying, isn't it?
So say it like that, yes.
Yeah, all right. I do. All right. Mr. Maharaj, is there any re-exam? Well, I'm very relieved to hear that. Can I thank everybody for sitting as late as we have? I hope that we can do so if it becomes necessary again. And certainly from Mr. Wade's point of view, he is now release you from your obligation. Can I ask, though, please, that you do seek to find the original copy of your statement, please, rather than the scanned copies or whatever they may have been distorted during the course of being transmitted to us. So I'd be grateful if we could have the original at some point. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, with that, we shall rise. Please do not worry about my getting off the bench. I've got to grab my own papers, so feel free. Thank you very much indeed. And I will see everybody again on the 5th of December.